Chapter 50. Although the commotion in the secret room in the backyard of Lin Lang Pavilion was huge, the people in the hall did not notice it. After the chaos caused by the first auction item, the annual large-scale auction continued in an orderly manner. Xiaochen watched helplessly as the auction continued. At this moment, the auction was already halfway through. However, Ao Jiao had not arrived yet. He did not dare to casually make a move. He had already bought a Rainbow Flame Python Spirit Core. If he were to make a move, he would only have one chance. At this moment, the second climax of the auction was about to begin. When the auctioneer announced that the next item was an inferior grade spirit stone, the atmosphere in the auction hall immediately flared up. Spirit stones were a special kind of natural treasure. It contained the purest spiritual energy in the world. When a normal cultivator used a small piece of spirit stone, they could immediately raise their cultivation by one realm. Aside from that, if it was used in battle, it could immediately replenish one's essence. It was not like the fire-attributed spirit core from before, which could only be used by a certain group of people. It was very effective for cultivators below Martial Saint. The rarity of a spirit stone was comparable to the precious moonstone. In the Tianwu continent, aside from the Great Jin nation, which had the largest spirit vein, the other spirit veins were all monopolized by the royal clan or some supersections. The other spirit veins that were given out were all monopolized by the country's royal family and some supersections. Ordinary warriors and some small forces could only obtain spirit stones through other unorthodox means. The auctioneer below introduced loudly, "Everyone, please look carefully. This is a genuine inferior grade spirit stone. I will not say much about the value of a spirit stone. I believe everyone is clear on it. Although it is the lowest grade spirit stone, it is still worth 1,000,000. Hence, the starting bid is 500,000. Each bid must be no less than 100,000. Just as the auctioneer finished speaking, there were enthusiastic calls for bids. Everyone here knew about treasures. Naturally, they understood the value of this inferior grade spirit stone. Many of the guests had come specifically for this inferior grade spirit stone. The price of the spirit stone continued to rise. Only when it reached 1,000,000 did the number of people calling for it slowly decrease. 1,000,000 was actually a threshold. After all, not everyone was like the Tang clan or the Shao clan, who would bid 4 or 5 million. Even if other people had so much money, they would have to weigh their own assets before bidding cautiously. Tang Feng, who was in VIP room 11, smiled and said, "It is time for us to make a bid. The clan had specifically instructed us to obtain this inferior grade spirit stone. Bid 2 million. As soon as Tang Feng made his bid, the auctioneer immediately shouted out his bid excitedly. Guest number 11 has made his move again, calling out a bid of 2 million taels of silver. He is indeed very generous. Is there any higher bid? With regards to the high price of 2 million taels of silver, the people sitting in the hall actually did not have much hope. The people who would be fighting next should be those in the VIP booths on the 4th floor. As expected, someone in room number 3 quickly raised the price to 2,200,000 silver taels. Immediately, the person in room number 4 raised the price to 2,500,000 silver taels. 2,500,000, this is not an auspicious number. The person in room number 4, are you sure you are not going to increase the bid? After the person in room number 4 made his bid, the auctioneer immediately said humorously. The person in room number 4 cursed in his heart. He steeled his heart and raised the price to 3 million silver taels of silver. The auctioneer immediately smiled and announced his bid. Xiao Chen was actually very interested in the inferior grade spirit stone. This inferior grade spirit stone was even more beneficial to martial disciples. Using himself as an example, if he used this inferior grade spirit stone, his cultivation realm would immediately rise to superior grade martial disciple. Furthermore, it would not be like other medicinal pills, which would leave behind an unstable foundation or hindering cultivation. This was because the spirit stone contained the pure essence of spiritual energy. After using it, it would immediately rise. The essence in a martial disciple's body only needed to be digested for a day and they would be able to completely stabilize their cultivation realm. There would not be any side effects. Unfortunately, Ao Jiao was not here. Xiaochen did not dare to make any rash decisions. He had already done so once before. Now, there were only 2 chances left. He could not miss it. Ao Jiao had already locked onto her target. However, when he saw the inferior grade spirit stone being auctioned off, Xiaochen could not help but feel an itch in his heart. This was a spirit stone that could raise one's cultivation realm. Xiaochen grumbled, I have no idea where Ao Jiao ran off to. She still has not returned. Since you want to buy it, then take it. The sudden voice startled Xiaochen. He turned his head to take a look. Indeed, it was Ao Jiao standing behind him. Xiaochen originally wanted to grumble a little. However, when he saw that her expression was not right, he took back his words. Hey, Ao Jiao, are you alright? Why is your complexion so bad? Ao Jiao said, if something happens to you, nothing will happen to me. Do you think my body is the same as yours? You actually know how to look at my complexion. This spirit stone is a good thing for you now. You can buy it. Xiaochen thought about it and agreed. Ao Jiao was a weapon spirit. If her complexion was not right, it could not be explained with human logic. On the other hand, Ao Jiao's words made Xiaochen happy. Can I really buy it? I already bought a 7-colored flame python spirit core earlier. If I buy it, I will only have one more chance to use it with Nangong Yen. It's fine. The thing that I want has not been auctioned yet, Ao Jiao said indifferently. Xiaochen smiled, then I can rest assured. The people in the VIP booths continued to bid for the inferior grade spirit stone. At this moment, the price had already reached 4 million silver taels. In VIP booth 11, Tang Feng calmly drank a mouthful of wine and said, it is already 4 million. It is time for the killing blow. Call out 6 million. Let's see who will bid higher than me. When the attendant behind him heard this, he quickly went to the window and called out Tang Feng's bid. When the auctioneer saw the bid from VIP booth 11 again, the smile on his face bloomed like a flower. He said passionately, VIP booth 11 always surprises us. He bid 6 million silver taels. When the auctioneer called out Tang Feng's bid, the noise in the auction hall stopped. Everyone guessed that this was the highest bid. A normal inferior grade spirit stone would be sold for around 5 million silver taels. Tang Feng had called out an additional 1 million. It was clear that he was determined to win it. The person in VIP booth 4 smacked the table violently. His face was filled with anger, but there was nothing he could do. When the auctioneer saw that no one was bidding, he said, 6 million silver taels. There should be no higher bid. If there is none, I will start the countdown. Hearing the auctioneer's voice, Tang Feng revealed a pleased expression on his handsome face. He smiled and said, it is not a bad thing that I did not obtain the 7-colored flame python spirit core. At least I now have enough capital to pocket this spirit stone. However, after Tang Feng waited for a long time, he still did not hear the sound of the auction being completed. He frowned and could not help but feel suspicious. He said to the attendant behind him, go and see what's going on. Why is the auctioneer not announcing the completion of the auction? That attendant quickly went to the window and looked down. He saw the auctioneer staring blankly at the window of VIP booth 1. His mouth was wide open, but he could not say a word. He had completely lost the qualities that an auctioneer should have. The attendant quickly turned his gaze to the opposite booth. After he saw clearly, he turned around and said in a trembling voice, second young master, it seems like VIP booth 1 has made a bid again. Tang Feng felt his heart skip a beat. The wine cup that he was about to drink stopped. He had a bad premonition. VIP booth 1 bids again. It is still 10 million, gold taels. The auctioneer wiped the sweat off his forehead and finally spoke again. Bang! Tang Feng crushed the wine cup in his hand once again. His expression was so gloomy that it made people want to see it. He said coldly, "Are you messing with me? In this Mo city, there is no one who dares to mess with me like this." The crowd below was thrown into chaos once again. If this was the first time someone bid 10 million gold taels, it would be abnormal. However, everyone believed that there was still a possibility that it was not too ridiculous. However, at this moment, the same person in the same booth had bid 10 million gold taels again. Even a fool would know that this was not normal. No one would squander their money like this. The situation below was even more chaotic than before. The auctioneer remembered Nangong Yan's instructions and did his best to pacify the crowd. After much difficulty, he managed to get the auction to continue. Ao Jiao smiled gently, "You are really too much of a scoundrel. You actually dare to bid 10 million gold taels so casually. Nangong Yan will be angered to death by you." Xiaoqin shrugged his shoulders and said, "I like to be direct. I do not like this kind of bidding war. Furthermore, this is what Nangong Yan promised me. For the things that I fancy, no matter what the final price is, he will pay for it. As for whether he can do it or not, that is his problem. It has nothing to do with me." In the following auctions, because the item that Ao Jiao mentioned did not appear, Xiaoqin did not make a move. The chaos caused by Xiaoqin slowly calmed down. Just as the auction was about to end, Ao Jiao suddenly said, "The next item is a piece of superior grade frost iron. You just have to bid for it." Xiaoqin did not understand, "What do you want that frost iron for?" Ao Jiao said, "Of course I have no use for it. You brought so many moonstones this morning, did you think I did not see it? You idiot, don't tell me you think that moonstones are the only thing needed to forge a spirit weapon?" Xiao Chen's face turned slightly red. "I did not think too much about it. I thought that the other materials could be obtained locally." Ao Jiao said, "There is nothing wrong with obtaining locally. It is just that this frost iron is a rarely seen superior grade frost iron. After I refine it, it can reach the quality of peak grade frost iron. If you only want to forge a profound ranked spirit weapon, you can give up on this frost iron." Hearing that Ao Jiao could raise the quality of this frost iron, Xiaoqin rejoiced in his heart. He knew a thing or two about the rarity and preciousness of peak-grade frost iron. In this world, other than a very small amount of peak-grade frost iron that could be produced naturally, the other peak-grade frost iron could only be obtained by refining superior-grade frost iron. However, this method of refining was something that only a few people in the Tianwu continent could grasp. From what Xiaoqin knew, within the great Qin nation, only the Heavenly Craft Manor had grasped this method of refining. As such, after he obtained this superior-grade frost iron, along with the large amount of moonstones in his hands, he might be able to forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. Chapter 51. Since that was the case, Xiaoqin did not hesitate any longer. When the auctioneer announced the start of the bidding, he immediately called out his bid. It was still 10 million gold taels. The chaos that Xiaoqin originally imagined did not appear. The people below were still numb to Xiaoqian's bid. The only ones who felt anxious were the people who placed the bids. Their emotions could be said to be a mixture of joy and worry. They were afraid that Xiaoqian was just a braggart, but they also thought that with the great reputation of Linlang Pavilion, it would be impossible for them to go back on their word. After the auction ended, someone immediately brought the 3 items that Xiaoqian had auctioned off to Xiaoqian's room and checked them carefully. Rainbow Flame Python Inner Core, Inferior Grade Spirit Stone, and Superior Grade Frost Iron. There were no problems with the quality. Xiaoqin did not leave immediately. He handed the frost iron in his hand to Ao Jiao and said, "Can I refine it here? I feel that there are 2 people outside staring at me." Ao Jiao said indifferently, "Your perception is not bad. There are indeed 2 flies hiding outside. There is no special requirement for the location to refine this superior grade frost iron." That piece of frost iron was about the size of a school bag. When Xiaoqin held it in his hand, he felt that it weighed at least 100 kilograms. It was as black as ink and looked very thick. Ao Jiao easily held the frost iron in her hand. She waited a few times before tossing it into the air. A white flame shot out from her palm and enveloped the frost iron in the air. Xiaoqian carefully observed Ao Jiao's every move. He memorized every step that she took. The method of refining superior-grade frost iron was an extremely rare secret technique in the continent. It was only in the hands of a few people. In the Great Qin Empire, only the heavenly craft manor possessed such a technique. This was a good opportunity for him to learn. The white flame burned slowly. Xiaoqian discovered that this flame was very strange. It did not have the ferocity and tyranny of a normal flame. Instead, it gave off a warm feeling. What kind of flame is this? Xiaoqian wondered. Ao Jiao had the intention to teach Xiaoqian. While maintaining the flame, she explained, this flame is not a flame cultivated by a cultivator. It is a human flame that has existed in the world for a long time. It is called the Bone Ghost Fire. Back then, the Thunder King, Sangmu, subdued it while cultivating in the 9 hells purgatory. After he died, he left this flame to me. Human fire. There was actually such a strange flame existing between heaven and earth. It was really an eye-opener. However, he didn't know what was so special about this human flame. Ao Jiao continued to explain that there were 4 types of extremely precious flames in the world, namely human flame, dragon flame, ghost flame, and heavenly flame. In the martial heaven continent, there were a total of 9 dragon veins. At the end of these dragon veins was the imperial Dao flame. Of the 9 dragon flames, it was known that 5 had been taken by someone. The remaining 4 had never been found. Aside from the fact that the dragon flames were buried 10,000 meters underground and the environment was incomparably harsh, the most important reason was that the remaining 4 dragon veins could change. According to legend, the possessor of the dragon flames could establish a dynasty. Unless one had the fate of a ruler, it would be impossible to find the dragon flames. Ghost flames existed in places of extreme yin. They were mysterious and unfathomable, possessing the might of gods and ghosts. There were 2 places of extreme yin in the continent. One was the profound yin cave, which was tens of thousands of meters deep, and the other was the 9 hells purgatory, which was known as hell in the mortal world. These 2 places were forbidden lands of the continent. However, the ghost flames that existed in them had been taken away by senior experts thousands of years ago. However, in the past few years, the ghost flames rarely appeared in the mortal world. No one knew if new ghost flames had appeared in these 2 places of extreme yin. The heavenly flame was publicly recognized as the most horrifying flame in the world. According to legend, it was a flame that could refine the entire world. This kind of flame was only recorded in the history books. It was possessed by the Tianwu Emperor, who founded the Tianwu dynasty and unified the continent 10,000 years ago. Following the destruction of the Tianwu dynasty, this kind of flame that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth had already disappeared in the long river of history. As for the final human flame, it was rather special. It was not a natural flame. It should be said that it was not formed purely from the power of nature. It was a special flame formed from the energy of the martial god, the strongest cultivator in the mortal world, after he passed away. When his body and soul were destroyed, it was formed from the energy of the martial god. After the martial god died, the huge energy in his body would not disappear. After this huge energy settled for a long time, it would form all sorts of strange flames. These were called human flames. When Xiaoqian heard the introduction, he felt his heart tremble. The world was vast, and there were all sorts of strange things. It was not something that could be seen in this small Mo city. He could not wait to go out and explore the world. Unfortunately, the promise of 10 years was not up yet. Since Xiaoqian had agreed to do something, he would naturally do his best. He could not leave now. Do martial gods really exist in this world? Xiaoqian asked. Ao Jiao's gaze was fixed on the frost iron wrapped in flames. She replied, of course, there are countless geniuses in the world. Although it is rare to reach the martial god realm, it is not impossible. Furthermore, according to the legends, there are mysterious existences above the martial god realm. Xiaoqin continued to ask, that Thunder King, Sangmu, did he break through to the martial god realm? Ao Jiao said indifferently, he was just one step away from it, yet he was killed by someone. I can only say that it was hard for him to change his fate. Xiaoqin found it hard to calm down for a long time. Someone as strong as the Thunder Emperor was actually killed by someone in the end. This was simply unbelievable. Could the person who killed him be the legendary martial god? Xiaoqin told Ao Jiao about the doubts in his heart. Ao Jiao only said indifferently, this is not something you should be thinking about now. Although you inherited the Thunder with Sword's inheritance, you do not have to bear the responsibility of taking revenge for him. This did not seem right. How could there be benefits for no reason in this world? Unexpectedly, he did not have to bear any responsibility. This caused Xiaoqin to feel very surprised. With regards to Ao Jiao's appearance, Xiaoqin had always been more worried than happy. At this moment, when he heard her say this, he felt slightly relieved. However, Ao Jiao's next words nearly caused Xiaoqin to vomit blood. Although you do not have to bear the responsibility of taking revenge for the Thunder King, it is hard to say if trouble will come looking for you. So, trashy master, you better become stronger as soon as possible. Xiaoqin was completely speechless. There were too many mysteries surrounding Ao Jiao. Why did the sword in the Thunder King's cave break? Who killed the Thunder King? How did he become her master? Until now, Xiaoqin knew very little. Furthermore, no matter how he asked Ao Jiao, she would not say anything. Today, she revealed a little, but it was still very confusing. Hu Qi. The black profound iron that was enveloped by the flames had already turned into a ball of molten metal. It was clear that the heat contained within the bone specter flame was a huge contrast to the warmth on the surface. The two of them spoke for less than 5 minutes and the superior grade frost iron had already turned into a ball of molten metal. If Xiaoqin used the purple thunder true fire to refine it, it would take at least half a day. With such a huge difference, one could imagine how strong the bone specter flame was. Ao Jiao shouted lightly. Her adorable face revealed a serious expression once again, causing others to be unable to restrain their laughter. Suddenly, a glowing broken sword appeared in her right hand. She brandished it at the molten metal within the flames. In an instant, sparks flew in all directions in the booth. The flames gave off an intense explosion in the air. When Xiaoqin saw the situation, he quickly hid behind Ao Jiao. Every time a strand of flame shot out, the bone specter flame lost a drop of molten metal. Xiaoqin thought to himself, this should be the removal of the impurities in the superior grade frost iron. Normally, when the frost iron reached superior grade, there would be very few impurities in it. If one wanted to remove the impurities without wasting the essence of the frost iron, one had to be very careful. Aside from having a good eye, the most important thing was the speed at which the saber was drawn. Although the molten metal looked still, it was actually flowing at a high speed within it. Xiaoqin released his spiritual sense and entered the inner world of the molten metal. Before him was a fiery red world. Even though it was Xiaoqin's spiritual sense that entered, he could still feel the horrifying temperature. In this fiery red world, there were clumps of unknown substances that Xiaoqin could not identify. They were constantly being squeezed and flowing. Xiaoqin observed carefully for a long time before he finally discovered something. The pure black substance should be the essence of the frost iron. Occasionally, there would be some gray iron residue being removed from the black substance. The short sword in Ao Jiao's hand was as precise as the precision instruments in his previous life. When the gray substance was removed, the essence was not wasted at all, it was all preserved. Xiaoqin withdrew his spiritual sense and looked at Ao Jiao's cute face once again. His eyes were filled with admiration. Not only did Ao Jiao know how to refine medicine, but the skill that she displayed now was clearly not something that an ordinary person could do. How many secrets does this little girl have? Can I really trust her completely? It's done. Ao Jiao heaved a sigh of relief and said joyfully. She withdrew the bone spectre flame into her hand and waved it gently. A fist-sized piece of frost iron appeared in her petite hand. Her eyes revealed an expression of joy. Trashy master, this is for you. Xiao Chen received the peak-grade frost iron from Ao Jiao. He was incomparably happy. This fist-sized piece of peak-grade frost iron was more than 100 times more valuable than the superior-grade frost iron. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen discovered that Ao Jiao's expression had become even weaker. There was a fire in his heart for no reason. You lied to me earlier, right? Your complexion is so terrible. You must have done something dangerous when you went out earlier. You even lied to me, saying that the physique of a sword spirit is different from a human's. Hence, you cannot judge things by their complexion. Your current situation is caused by overexertion. Ao Jiao quibbled, you actually used the eyes of a human to judge a sword spirit. You are really trash and an idiot. You can deal with the flies outside yourself. After Ao Jiao finished speaking, she seemed to know that she was in the wrong. She entered the universe ring and did not come out again. Xiao Chen sighed in his heart, your sister, no wonder you are called Ao Jiao. The Thunder King did not give her the wrong name. Her Tsundra attribute is still very high. Xiao Chen released his spiritual sense and carefully observed the two Tang clan disciples hiding outside. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up into a cold smile. Trying to target this young master. You are too inexperienced. Chapter 52. After Tang Feng placed all the items into his universe ring, he tightened the black cloak on his body and left the private room, heading for the back door of Linlang Pavilion. He ignored the two Tang clan disciples following behind him. One of the two people behind him said, go and report to second young master, I will follow him first. Good, you follow him first. Do not lose him. Otherwise, if second young master gets angry, you and I will be in trouble. Tang Feng, who was in the private room, was anxiously waiting for news from his subordinates. That inferior grade spirit stone was something his father had repeatedly instructed him to obtain. At this moment, someone had disrupted his plans and he did not complete his mission. If he returned empty-handed, he would definitely be punished. Bang! The door to the private room opened. When Tang Feng saw his follower, he was overjoyed. He quickly said, is there any news? Who is so daring to snatch something that I have my eyes on? That follower rushed over, panting non-stop. He wanted to say something but could not. Tang Feng scolded, trash, if you have something to say it quickly. If that person escapes, I will take your life. The follower's heart tightened and he said while gasping for breath, reporting, to second young master, that person was wearing a large black cloak. I could not see his appearance clearly. However, his strength is only that of a medial grade martial disciple. Tang San is currently following him, he will not lose him. Just a medial grade martial disciple. A gleam flashed in Tang Feng's eyes as he continued, then did you see the auctioneer send those 3 items to his room? I saw it. Good. Tang Feng laughed coldly, a mere medial grade martial disciple actually dares to disrupt my plans twice. I want to see if he has 3 heads and 6 arms. The 4 of you can go. Medial grade martial disciple, don't tell me you can't even settle this. I will go back and explain the situation to my father first. Second young master, rest assured. Not to mention a medial grade martial disciple, even a superior grade martial disciple would not be able to escape from me, Tang Feng's martial master follower said. At the same time, in the backyard of Linlang Pavilion, Nangong Yen was sending people to clean up the collapsed secret room. Hopefully, he would be able to find some pills that were not damaged. After all, this was the result of 10 years of hard work. It was truly heartbreaking to see them disappear just like that. Just at this moment, the manager of Linlang Pavilion's auction walked over. His expression was extremely ugly as he stood behind Nangong Yen. He wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say. When Nangong Yen saw the situation, he frowned and said unhappily, "Old Li, if you have something to say, just say it." When Old Li heard this, his forehead beaded with sweat. He carefully said, "Pavilion Master, I've done what you asked me to do. The alchemist has already auctioned off 3 items." When Nangong Yen heard this, he smiled and said, "I was wondering what the matter is. Why are you so anxious over such a small matter? By the way, what did he have his eyes on?" When Old Li saw that the pavilion master was not in a bad mood, he relaxed a little. He said, "A rainbow flame python inner core, an inferior grade spirit stone, and a piece of superior grade frost iron." Nangong Yen laughed heartily, "Your eyesight is quite accurate, huh? These are all good things. Even in Luojia continent, these are rare treasures." Old Li hesitated for a long time before he finally made up his mind. He slowly said, "However, the pavilion master's final bid was quite high." Nangong Yen said unhappily, "What's wrong? Are you worried that I can't afford it? It will not be easy for you to explain to the higher-ups what price he bid." 10 million, gold taels. 10 million. Nangong Yen only spoke halfway before his expression changed. He said, "How much did you say? Say it again." 3 items, each of them was sold for 10 million gold taels. That is a total of 30 million gold taels. Old Li had already anticipated that something was wrong, but he still said it. "Fuck you." When Nangong Yen heard this, he disregarded his status and cursed. The surrounding attendants and Old Li were all startled. Others might not know Nangong Yan's identity, but it was impossible for them not to know. He was the younger brother of the Nangong clan's clan head, Nangong Lai. Furthermore, he was the Great Qin nation's top alchemist. Even the emperor of the Great Qin nation had to curry favor with him. Now that Nangong Yen disregarded his status and cursed, it was easy to imagine how angry he was. This caused them to be extremely terrified. If Nangong Yen really blamed them, they would not be able to keep their heads. Old Li knelt on the ground and said fearfully, "Pavilion Master, should we send people to capture him? He should not have gone far." When Nangong Yen heard this, he was extremely angry. He was not even a match for that person. If these people went, how could they survive? He scolded, "Reckless fool, did I say that I was going to pursue this matter?" Old Li did not know what he said wrong. He said, "Pavilion Master, weren't you so angry earlier? Could it be that you are going to let that person off?" Nangong Yen calmed himself down. The mental state of a rank 7 alchemist was not that weak. He said indifferently, "Don't bother yourself with this matter. Remember, do not seek trouble with that person. In the future, if that person comes again, you must treat him with respect. Do not neglect him. I will settle the matter of the 30 million gold taels myself." "Looks like I will have to leave late," Nangong Yen smiled bitterly to himself. He could only refine a few more rank 7 medicinal pills to settle this matter. However, he still felt indignant in his heart. 30 million gold taels, how much of a beast would he be to ask for it? Outside Linlang Pavilion, Xiaochen wore a black cloak and walked slowly. With his spiritual sense, Xiaochen could see the 4 people following behind him very clearly. 1 inferior grade martial master and 3 superior grade martial disciples were a little difficult to deal with. "I have to deal with that martial master in the shortest time possible," Xiaochen thought to himself. Unknowingly, Xiaochen had already arrived at a desolate alley. The alley was very narrow, only 2 people could pass through it side by side. This place was already quite a distance away from the bustling streets. There was not a single person in sight. They should be making a move here, Xiaochen thought to himself. Indeed, it was as Xiaochen expected. When he raised his head, there was a cultivator dressed in blue. When Xiaochen turned around, he saw 3 cultivators blocking his way. An inferior grade martial master blocked the way in front and 3 superior grade martial disciples behind. With a pincer attack, Xiaochen looked like he had no way to escape. Everyone, why have you followed me all the way from Linlang Pavilion? As Xiaoqin spoke, he circulated the purple thunder divine incantation in his body. He only wanted to kill this person in one move. I can't be bothered to speak nonsense with you. If you know what's good for you, obediently hand over all the things you bought from the auction. Otherwise, you will die a horrible death. Under the cloak, Xiaoqin revealed a faint smile. The qi and blood in his entire body surged. He was already at his peak, waiting for his opponent to reveal an opening. Xiaoqin pretended to think. He turned around and said to the inferior grade martial master, "Do you want the inferior grade spirit stone? I can give it to you." After Xiaoqin spoke, he waved his hand and the inferior grade spirit stone flew out. Under the sunlight, the inferior grade spirit stone gave off a bright glow. The inferior grade martial master flew through the air and slowly descended towards the superior grade martial master. Although the superior grade martial master was suspicious, there was definitely a trap for Xiaoqin to hand over the inferior grade spirit stone so obediently. However, the superior grade martial master did not care about it. He believed that as a medial grade martial master, he would not be able to do much harm to him. Just as the spirit stone was about to land on the ground, the superior grade martial master, who had been staring at Xiaoqin, finally shifted his gaze to the spirit stone in the air. He leaped up gently and stretched out his right hand, wanting to catch the falling spirit stone. Hu Qi. Xiaoqin smiled coldly in his heart. He shouted and stomped on the ground, leaving behind a 2-meter deep footprint. His figure shot forward like an arrow. When the superior grade martial master saw that Xiaoqin had made a move, he quickly stopped trying to catch the spirit stone. His expression was filled with confidence as he sent out a palm strike, wanting to block Xiaoqin's attack. However, he had lost the initiative and his mind was relaxed. How could he block the full-powered palm strike of Xiaoqin when he was in his peak state? Everywhere the palm wind passed, wind and thunder howled and a purple light flickered. The superior grade martial master only felt an electric light coming from his palm. A numb feeling spread throughout his body. His hands and feet actually turned stiff for a moment. Bang! Xiaoqin did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. He kicked the person in front of him into the air. Who? A purple flame spun rapidly on the tip of Xiaoqin's finger. After an unknown number of times, it flew towards the person in the air. There was a crisp sound and a bloody hole the size of a finger appeared in the middle of the person's forehead. By the time he was in the air, the purple electric light that Xiaoqin had attached to his body had already been eliminated. The instant the flame shot towards him, he immediately covered his entire body in flames. However, Xiaoqin's purple thunder true fire was no longer the same as before. Its penetrative ability was no longer the same as before. It instantly pierced through his essence shield. The flame that was left in his mind started to burn slowly. The hole in his body that was being eaten by the flame was getting bigger and bigger. Under the sunlight, his body was like a pile of burning wood. After it was burned, it turned into ashes that slowly fell from the sky. When the wind blew, before it landed on the ground, it had already turned into ashes forever. Although the situation seemed to take a long time to describe, it actually happened in an instant. Xiaoqin made a move to paralyze the other party. Then, he kicked the other party into the air and shot out the purple thunder true fire. All of this happened in the time it took for 3 breaths. When the 3 people behind Xiaoqin saw their comrade turn into ashes, a boundless fear appeared in their eyes. In the blink of an eye, the strongest person on their side had been eliminated. This person was really only a medial grade martial disciple. Their gazes landed on the cloaked Xiaoqin once again. This time, Xiaoqin was like a grim reaper that had just walked out of hell. Beat this fellow up. No matter how strong he is just a medial grade martial disciple. Furthermore, he does not have a weapon. I don't believe he can kill the 3 of us, one of them said boldly. When the remaining 2 people heard this, they quickly drew their weapons. If they could not complete the mission given by the second young master, they would receive a heavy punishment. Although the person in front of them was terrifying, it was not as if they did not have a chance of victory. However, when they drew their weapons, they were shocked to discover that they could not use their weapons in such a narrow alley. They could not help but feel vexed. Under the cloak, Xiaochen smiled mockingly. Did you think I casually walked into an alley? I foolishly followed you in. Today, none of you can escape. Chapter 53. 3 superior-grade martial cultivators who could not use their weapons could only walk side by side in this narrow alley. Xiaochen only needed to deal with 2 of them. It was not a difficult task. Furthermore, with 2 people walking side by side, it was not as convenient as Xiaochen. After he dealt with the 3 of them, Xiaochen did not even exhaust half of his essence. He shot out a few flames and turned the people on the ground into ashes. Xiaochen took off his black cloak and slowly left this desolate alley. Walking forward, there was actually a blacksmith shop at the end of the alley. This blacksmith shop was very shabby. The paint on the wooden signboard had already fallen off. It looked like a moldy wooden board. Xiaochen remembered his purpose for coming out today and decided to go in and take a look. Since he had already come this far, there was no harm in taking a look. The area of this shop was very small, there was not even a complete shelf in the narrow shop. Many of the ironware were piled up in the corner, making the shop look even more cramped. Xiaochen looked around. Among the pile of ironware, he actually discovered some farming tools. He could not help but find it funny. They actually started selling farming tools. How bad must their business be? I actually thought of coming here to forge spirit weapons. The most important thing was that Xiaochen had been here for a period of time and there was not a single person in the shop. This was very strange. Xiaochen did not have any intention to continue staying and was about to leave. Wait, don't leave first. Go and take a look at the weapons in the corner. Suddenly, Ao Jiao's voice appeared in his mind. Xiaochen said unhappily, it is just a pile of scrap metal. I don't think there is anything nice to look at. If I tell you to look, then just look. Xiaochen was helpless. He could only walk to the corner where the ironware was piled up and casually took out a sword. This was a refined iron sword that was 2 fingers wide and 1 meter long. Its design was not extravagant and looked very plain. Xiaochen was not good with weapons. After looking at it for a long time, he could not see anything special about it. He stood up and held the sword in his hand, waving it a few times. Xiaochen stabbed the sword at various angles in the air without making any sound. Xiaochen also did not feel any strange power. Putting the sword back in the corner, Xiaochen suddenly seemed to have thought of something. He held the sword in his hand again and swung it a few times. There was still no sound, and he did not feel any strange power. A trace of amazement flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. He put down the long sword in his hand and chose an even thinner long sword from the corner. He waved it with all his might, but he still didn't hear any strange sounds or hear any sounds. How is it possible for this sword to not make a sound? Earlier, the sword was too heavy. However, this sword is as thin as a cicada's wings. Why is it still unable to make a sound? Asked a puzzled Xiaochen. Ao Jiao suddenly popped out and said, that's not how you use a sword. When Xiaochen saw that Xiaochen's complexion was much better, he put down his previous worries. He asked, what's with the swords here? Ao Jiao did not say anything. She took the sword from Xiaochen's hand and casually took a stance. She stood there quietly. Xiaochen could feel her aura rising continuously. It was as though she could pierce through the sky in the next moment. Pu Ci. Ao Jiao suddenly made her move. She brandished the sword in the air twice. The sword that was as thin as a cicada's wings gave off a joyful hum in the air. The sound was clear and melodious. It was like rain falling on the ground, dripping non-stop. Wang! There was a continuous hum. In the next moment, all the weapons in the entire shop started to hum. It was like a lover who had finally found the person they liked. The sound was extremely joyful. Xiaochen looked at all this in disbelief. He took the sword from Ao Jiao's hand again. All the swords in the shop immediately stopped buzzing. No matter how hard Xiaochen tried, there was no sound. It was as though it was dead. Yes, it was as though it was dead. This was a mouthful. The sword itself was a dead object. How could it be said that it was as though it was dead? However, at this moment, Xiaochen thought of this phrase. Why is it that when this sword is in my hand, it is like a dead object? When it is in your hand, it immediately comes to life? Xiaochen asked Ao Jiao. When talking about swords, Ao Jiao's face was filled with pride. It was a pity that her cute face looked more like a girl when she was proud. Although you don't understand swords, this analogy is very good. Listening to the sword and communicating with it. Those who understand will naturally understand. Those who don't understand will naturally not understand. These words were very confusing. Xiaochen said, "Can you explain it in simpler terms?" Ao Jiao thought for a while and said, "In simpler terms, these weapons, under the skillful hands of the blacksmiths, possess simple spirituality after they are cast. Those who have a certain level of understanding towards weapons can unleash more than 2 times the power of a weapon. On the other hand, those who don't can't even unleash half of the power." Xiaochen was delighted. It seemed like the owner of this shop was a senior expert. He said, "With so many spiritual swords placed here, isn't the senior afraid that they will be taken away?" Ao Jiao shook her head and said, "Although the swords have gained spirituality, they are only cast from ordinary iron. How strong can they be? If it is just a competition of strength, I'm afraid that any of the swords here can't even compare to the most basic spirit weapon." Ha, I didn't expect to meet someone who understands swords in this desolate little shop. My swords have not made a sound for 10 years. Suddenly, a heroic laughter came from the back of the shop. A tall and sturdy man with a square face slowly walked out from the back door. At first glance, this person gave off an incomparably heroic feeling. However, there seemed to be something wrong with his left leg, as he walked with a limp. That person first looked at Xiaochen, then turned his gaze to Ao Jiao. His eyes shot out a ray of amazement and said, "What a spiritual sword spirit, no wonder you understand swords so well." Then, he turned his gaze back to Xiaochen and said, "Pardon me for asking, but what kind of divine weapon does little friend have? Can you take it out and take a look?" As expected of a senior expert, he could see through Ao Jiao's background with one look. Xiaochen cupped his hands and bowed, saying, "Senior has good eyesight. However, this one spirit weapon has already been destroyed, I really can't take it out." That person's eyes revealed a doubtful look and said, "The divine weapon has already been destroyed? How is that possible? If that's the case, then the sword spirit, with a broken leg, are you still able to forge a spirit weapon?" Ao Jiao suddenly interrupting that person's words. Xiaochen looked at Ao Jiao in astonishment. She interrupted that person's words, she was definitely trying to hide something. However, this was not the time to talk about this. Xiaochen said apologetically to that person, "Senior, I'm sorry. My sword spirit cannot speak, I apologize." That person smiled and said, "It's fine, my name is Mo Fan. Don't keep calling me senior. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Mo." Xiaochen nodded and said, "I am Xiaochen." "Big Brother Mo, are you still able to forge a spirit weapon?" Mo Fan's eyes were filled with shock. "Xiaochen, you are Mo City's Xiao clan's second young master, Xiaochen." Xiaochen nodded his head, but his heart was in turmoil. Could it be that this person knows me? However, I don't seem to have any impression of him in my memories. Could it be that before I transmigrated, Xiaochen had done something to offend this person? If that was the case, it would be difficult to deal with him. It was not easy to find a good blacksmith in Mo City. If it was because of this matter, it would be a pity. Mo Fan said, "Brother Xiaochen, did you save a little girl on the streets a month ago?" "That was my daughter. I did not expect to meet you today." So it was because of this matter. Xiao Chen relaxed. He did not expect that a small matter back then would turn into a favor. Xiao Chen smiled. That day, I left in a hurry. Was the little girl all right after that? Did she get any fright? Mo Fan laughed loudly. That little girl was very wild. I was not paying attention and she slipped away. When I returned, I heard what happened from the people beside me. I am indebted to you for making a move. The little girl did not get any fright. Everything is fine. I thank you for that. The two of them continued on this topic and chatted for a while. Suddenly, Xiao Chen asked the question he had earlier, Big Brother Mo, why was there no one guarding the shop when we arrived? Mo Fan smiled awkwardly. Humans have 3 urgent needs. There were no other workers in the shop, so there was no one guarding it. Xiao Chen sweated in his heart. He did not expect such a reason. He quickly changed the topic. Big Brother Mo, are you still able to forge spirit weapons? When Mo Fan heard this, the expression in his eyes slowly turned serious. He said, Brother Xiao Chen, I would like to speak with your sword spirit alone. Could you please step aside for now? I have the same intention. You don't have to care about this trash's opinion, Ao Jiao said. Xiao Chen was not satisfied in his heart. He had just killed 4 cultivators with a higher cultivation than him. Why was Ao Jiao still looking down on him? Although there was a little bit of trickery involved, he had personally killed them all. There was no exaggeration at all. Ao Jiao said, I can tell you are not satisfied just by looking at you. If you can make any of the weapons here make a sound, I will not say anything. Xiao Chen said helplessly, Big Brother Mo, I will go out for a while. Outside the door, Xiao Chen smiled in his heart. Although I am gone, my spiritual sense can still enter. Whatever you say will not escape my ears. Sister Tsundra, you want to hide from me? You are too naive. When Ao Jiao saw Xiao Chen go out, she waved her hand and a faint yellow barrier surrounded the entire shop. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense was blocked outside. You left so obediently. You definitely have a backup plan. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? You are too naive. After Ao Jiao finished setting up the barrier, she said, let's make this short. Which generation of the Supreme Sky Sect's successor are you? Have you awakened your Haotian hammer yet? How much of an impact does this injured leg have on you? Mo Fan's jaw dropped. He said in disbelief, who exactly are you? How do you know so much about me? Why do I feel a familiar aura from you? Chapter 54. It is not strange. My body was forged by the 3rd generation sect master of the Supreme Sky Sect, Ao Jiao said indifferently. Mo Fan was startled again, subdivine weapon, Thunderwood sword. Didn't you fall together with the Thunder King, Sang Mu, 1,000 years ago? Ao Jiao frowned slightly and said, you do not have to care about my matters. You have not answered my question yet. Mo Fan looked at his crippled leg and said, the Supreme Sky Sect was destroyed long ago. I am the last inheritor of the Supreme Sky Sect. This crippled leg was injured by an enemy, causing the circulation of essence to be blocked. Now, I can only forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon at best. It is impossible for me to forge a divine weapon. Ao Jiao nodded and said, heaven-ranked spirit weapon? That is far more than enough. Xiao Chen, who was outside the door, suddenly realized that the barrier blocking his spiritual sense had disappeared. He quickly walked in and glared at Ao Jiao. Ao Jiao directly ignored him. Mo Fan saw that Xiao Chen had already entered and said, Brother Xiao Chen, what kind of spirit weapon do you want to forge? Have you prepared all the materials? Hearing this, Xiao Chen quickly took out the moonstone and the peak-grade profound iron from his universe ring. He said, these are all the materials I brought. I want to forge a saber. Mo Fan looked at the pile of moonstone on the ground that was 2 feet high. His eyes were wide open, he had an expression of disbelief. Finally, he shifted his gaze to the peak-grade frost iron. Heavens! Where did you get so many moonstones? And this top-grade frost iron as well. This is simply unbelievable. Shao Qin smiled in satisfaction. He found a piece of paper and drew the lunar shadow saber's design. After that, he handed it to Mo Fan and said, "The design is like this. I wonder if I brought enough materials." Mo Fan received the paper and took a look. He felt somewhat helpless in his heart. This Shao Qin did not draw a proper weapon blueprint. He only drew the original form of the lunar shadow saber. "Young Master Shao, this blueprint of yours is too crude. Furthermore, forgive me for speaking bluntly. The design of this saber is not very good. There are many areas that need to be improved. Should I change it?" Shao Qin was a little hesitant. The style of this lunar shadow saber was what he liked the most. The lunar shadow saber was similar to the katanas in the anime, unlike the Zanmadeo, which had a bulky design. It was a streamlined design, which was rare among swords. As a former otaku, he had a special interest in this area, so he really did not want to change it too much. When Mo Fan saw that Shao Qin was somewhat hesitant, he said, "How about this? I'll draw another sketch." Mo Fan saw that Shao Qin hesitating and said, "Shao Qin spirit Shao Qin Fan." The more Shao Qin watched from the side, the redder he blushed. This Mo Fan's sketch was much more formal than his. After half an hour, Mo Fan finished drawing and handed it to Shao Qin. Not only was the length, width, and thickness of the drawing clearly indicated, there were also simple notes on the materials used. Afraid that Shao Qin would not understand, Mo Fan explained, "Young Master Shao, the lunar shadow saber that you used earlier, according to the drawing, was only 1.2 meters long. I increased it to 1.6 meters. The longer the saber, the greater the advantage it would have in battle. However, many blacksmiths would not increase the length of the saber when facing this type of saber. This was because the longer the saber, the more difficult it would be to control the flow of the saber. Thus, it would destroy the overall image and flow of the saber. Thus, most blacksmiths would avoid making the saber longer than 1.2 meters. Mo Fan continued, "There is no need to make too many changes to the width. For this type of saber, the standard width is 2 fingers wide. However, this saber is 1.6 meters long. Thus, I suggest increasing the width by half a finger. That way, it will not look too thin due to the length of the saber and affect its aesthetics." Mo Fan explained the changes that he made. Furthermore, the improved saber was even more tyrannical than the original lunar shadow saber. It was not inferior to the Grim Reaper's beheading moon. The more Shao Qin looked at it, the more satisfied he felt. He smiled, "Big brother Mo, I will do as you say." "That's right, what materials do I lack?" "I still have time, I will send them over in a few days." Mo Fan said, "That depends on what grade of spirit weapon you want to forge and if there are any special requirements." Shao Qin did not expect there to be such a way, so he asked Mo Fan for help. Mo Fan explained. Spirit weapons were divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, profound, and yellow. Each grade could be further divided into 3 smaller grades: superior grade, medial grade, and inferior grade. Above heaven ranked were subdivine weapons and divine weapons. There were a total of 10 divine weapons in the Tianwu continent. Every time a new divine weapon was born, an old divine weapon would fall. After explaining the basics to Shao Qin, Mo Fan continued, "No matter what grade of spirit weapon it is, it can be embedded with a demonic core of the corresponding attribute according to the requirements of the cultivator. The demonic core was the inner core of a demonic beast. The demonic chi of a spirit beast was contaminated by demonic chi. Compared to a spirit beast, there was a huge change. The biggest change was in the spirit beast's inner core. The spirit beast's inner core was originally a gentle item that nourished essence. After becoming a demonic beast, the inner core would become a demonic core. It was filled with a violent energy and had a strange connection with the world. When it was embedded in a spirit weapon, it could give the spirit weapon a strong energy, possessing the attribute of the demonic core. When Xiaochen heard this, he said, "According to what you said, I am currently lacking a lightning-attributed demonic core." "That's not right." Mo Fan nodded his head and said, "However, Ao Jiao already told me earlier. Actually, I happen to have a rank 6 demonic core of the Thunder Rock. I can give it to you first. Treat it as me repaying you for your kindness." When Xiaochen heard this, he was incomparably happy. However, when he thought about it carefully, he felt that something was strange. This Mo Fan had said so much earlier. It seemed like his goal was to give this demonic core to him. Xiaochen looked at Ao Jiao and discovered that she was looking at him innocently. Her gaze was abnormally pure. Xiaochen felt a headache and decided not to think about it. Xiaochen said, "Since you are not lacking anything, when can you complete it?" Mo Fan thought for a while and said, "Young Master Xiao, if you want to be fast, you can complete it today. However, you have to help me. If you are not in a rush, I will be able to send it over in 3 days." Since he could be fast, it was naturally better to be fast. Such a good spirit weapon was something that he wanted to obtain immediately. If he had to wait for 3 days, wouldn't that just leave him in suspense? Xiaochen seemed to have thought of something and said, "That's right, after talking for so long, I don't think I have mentioned what grade of spirit weapon I want to forge." Mo Fan tidied up the moonstones and peak-grade frost iron on the ground and said casually, "With so many moonstones, of course it will be a superior grade heaven ranked one." Superior grade heaven ranked. Xiaochen was startled in his heart. It had been a few hundred years since a heaven-ranked spirit weapon had appeared in the continent. One of the reasons was the lack of moonstones, but another reason was the lack of skills of the blacksmiths. In these few hundred years, there should have been people who had accumulated enough moonstones to forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. However, the reason why no heaven-ranked spirit weapon had appeared was definitely due to the lack of skilled blacksmiths. From what Xiaochen knew, the only people in the Tianwu continent who could forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon were the disciples of the Haotian sect. These disciples of the Haotian sect had a mysterious bloodline flowing in their bodies. Their martial spirit was born as a Haotian hammer. Every disciple of the Haotian sect was a natural-born divine blacksmith. In reality, the few divine blacksmiths in the continent were all the inheritors of the Haotian hammer. This was an advantage that came from their bloodline. Outsiders could not have it, and could only be envied. However, it was this talent that brought them a calamity. According to the legends, 600 years ago, a holy land that had existed since the Tianwu dynasty wanted them to forge a new divine weapon for them. Since ancient times, the Haotian sect's ancestors had taught them that the Haotian sect could never forge a divine weapon while they were still alive. At most, they could only forge a subdivine weapon. Because of this strange ancestral teaching, the Haotian sect rejected the Holy Land's request. After that, the Haotian sect no longer existed in this world. In the past few hundred years, no new heaven-ranked spirit weapon had appeared in the Tianwu continent. At this moment, Xiaochen had casually said a few words, and Mo Fan wanted to forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. Could it be that he thought that his forging skills were comparable to those of the Haotian sect? Xiaochen suppressed the doubts in his heart and followed Mo Fan out of the back door of the shop. Behind the shop was a courtyard. Mo Fan brought Xiaochen and continued to walk forward. After passing through a few small houses, Mo Fan stopped in front of a stone house. He took out the key to the stone house from his bosom. With a clang sound, the stone door was gently pushed open by Mo Fan. The room was pitch black. Because the house was built in a dark place, the sunlight from the outside could not shine in. Mo Fan lit up an oil lamp and opened up a secret passage. He said apologetically, "Inside the forging room. Because the temperature is too high, I built it underground. We still have to walk for a while." Xiaochen nodded to express his understanding. He followed Mo Fan's footsteps and walked down the steps of the stone house. Half an hour later, a huge stone room appeared in front of Xiaochen. In the stone room, there were all sorts of forging tools. In the middle of the room, there was a huge furnace that attracted everyone's attention. Beside the furnace was a huge vat. When Xiaochen walked in to take a look, he discovered that the vat was filled with a kind of black water. It looked like ink, but it was not ink at all. It was pitch black, but if one looked carefully, its brightness was not dazzling. Instead, it was very reserved. This was a contradictory existence. Xiaochen had never seen such a strange water before. He could not help but ask, "What is in this vat?" Mo Fan was currently cleaning up the basement that he had not used for a long time. He did not have the time to answer Xiaochen's question. Ao Jiao said, "This is the water of the Yellow Springs. It is the most suitable water for quenching in the world." Yellow Springs? Xiaochen shivered and quickly took a few steps back from the water vat. The main reason was that the legends of the Yellow Springs on Earth were too deeply rooted in his heart. He could not help but take a few steps back. Ao Jiao looked at Xiaochen strangely. She asked, "What's wrong with you? Did you get frightened by the Yellow Springs?" Although he had indeed been frightened by the Yellow Springs, this was not the time to admit it. Xiaochen said calmly, "How could that be possible?" "That's right, Big Brother Mo, is there anything you need my help with?" Chapter 55. By the time Xiaochen and Mo Fan cleaned up the secret room that they had not used for a long time, it was already half an hour later. After Mo Fan checked the furnace again, he said solemnly, "I am going to start the fire. Listen to my command and pull the bellows." Xiaochen nodded and slowly walked to the front of the bellows. He grasped the handle made of wood and iron with both hands. A cool feeling came from the wooden handle. "Begin." The flame in the furnace suddenly rose up. In a split second, the entire underground room was filled with heat waves. However, what was strange was that this secret room seemed to have undergone an ingenious design. This secret chamber seemed to have undergone an ingenious design. After the heat waves circled in the air, they slowly dissipated and were evenly distributed throughout the secret chamber. Furthermore, there was a cool breeze coming from the ventilation holes. Although the underground room was still extremely hot, it was not unbearable. Xiaochen discarded the distracting thoughts in his heart and grabbed the wooden handle and pulled back. Chi! Chi! Something strange happened. Xiaochen was astonished to discover that he had only pulled back a few centimeters before he could no longer pull it back. He was astonished, "What is going on? No matter how weak I am, I still have the strength of a medial grade martial disciple. Could it be that I can't even pull this small bellows?" The flame in the furnace slowly died down. Mo Fan quickly looked in Xiaochen's direction and could not help but feel anxious. "Young Master Xiao, why are you not doing anything? The flame in the furnace is about to be extinguished. This furnace of mine is not an ordinary furnace. Every time I light it, it consumes a large amount of spirit stones. I cannot waste them." Xiaochen was very anxious. However, no matter how much strength he used, the bellows would not budge. Sweat continuously dripped from his forehead. What is going on? What exactly is going on? Mo Fan seemed to have understood something. He quickly came over to tell Xiaochen some of the tricks behind this. Ao Jiao suddenly stopped him. "Now is not the time for you to be distracted. Watch the furnace carefully and prepare to place the moonstone in. I will teach him." Bo! Xiaochen suddenly felt something soft on the back of his head. It felt very comfortable. In the scorching hot basement, there was actually a cool feeling that calmed one's mind. "Idiot, this bellows can't be moved by brute force. You have to follow the flow of air and exert your strength, otherwise, no matter how much strength you have, you won't be able to move it, and if you exert too much strength, you will destroy the bellows." Xiaochen smelled a fragrant breeze. Ao Jiao, who was floating in the air, was leaning closely behind him. A pair of proud and firm breasts pressed against the back of his head, and two slender arms slowly rested on his hands. He controlled the wooden handle and slowly pulled the bellows with his arm. With a boom, a huge flame rose from the furnace, and the temperature of the entire basement suddenly doubled. However, Xiao Chen's heart felt incomparably cool. At this moment, Ao Jiao's voice was much gentler than usual, like the coolest summer wind in the world, slowly moving the young man's impetuous heart. Slowly forgetting the softness on the back of his head, under Ao Jiao's guidance, Xiao Chen pulled the wooden handle of the bellows unhurriedly. Unknowingly, Ao Jiao had already slowly moved away from behind Xiao Chen. She looked at Mo Fan, who was in front of the furnace, in a daze. Mo Fan took out a piece of moonstone from behind him and muttered, "What a waste." When a normal person refines a spirit weapon, they only need a bit of moonstone powder. Yet, he actually threw it piece by piece into the furnace. If it wasn't for the lack of other rare materials, with so many moonstones, it would be more than enough to forge a subdivine weapon. Ao Jiao stared at the moonstones that were continuously falling into the furnace, and the scene in front of her started to become blurry. 1,000 years ago, it was the same scene. A talented youth brought a huge amount of moonstones and went to the Haotian sect alone. Because of his strong charisma, the current sect leader of the Haotian sect personally went down the mountain to receive him, and personally forged the subdivine weapon, the Thunderwood Sword, for him. When the five-colored light soared into the sky, a strong spiritual energy enveloped the entire Haotian sect. Within a circumference of 100 miles, the overflowing sword intent could be felt. Everyone knew that the sixth subdivine weapon in the past 1,000 years had been born. She was born from the seven-colored red light. She was as pure and holy as a fairy from the heavens. Her flawless face seemed to have a trace of immaturity and blankness. The newborn just stood there quietly. Her somewhat immature face made her look like a child. However, all of this could not hide her pride. She just looked at the world without saying a word. Within a circumference of 1,000 miles, the 108,000 spirit weapons trembled because of her appearance. It was because she was the king of swords, the king of these 108,000 spirit weapons. Although she was just born, she could not hide her pride. Since I was born, I am the king. All the ordinary weapons have to kneel and pay their respects to me, because I am the king of swords. I am the subdivine weapon, the Thunder King Mulberry Sword. No one can stop me. She carried the mulberry sword and flew up into the sky, leaving behind a large expanse of light. The divine weapon is flying. She is going to choose her master. Astonished voices came from all directions, but most of them were incomparably happy. No one would have thought that this newborn Thunderwood Sword would actually be so proud, wanting to choose its own master. However, this also gave them a chance. If they could subdue it, then they would become the master of this subdivine weapon. Subdivine weapon, the dream of all the martial artists in the world. However, that peerless person did not give them any chance. He only gave them 3 seconds to think. They only saw him fly up into the sky, like a rock spreading its wings. He was faster than lightning and instantly grasped the Thunderwood Sword in his hand. Sang Mu, who had landed, laughed loudly. His eyes were filled with unconcealable surprise. He said, "What a proud sword. From today onwards, you will be called Ao Jiao. I, Sang Mu, will definitely be someone who will make you feel proud." The temperature in the basement was getting higher and higher. No matter how exquisite the design was, when the furnace was completely ignited, the temperature neared 1,000 degrees Celsius. No matter what, it would not be able to completely dissipate the heat. Xiao Chen's clothes were already completely drenched. On the other hand, Mo Fan had already taken off the clothes on his upper body, revealing his firm muscles. Xiao Chen wiped the sweat off his forehead. He only felt that his entire body was incomparably hot. The entire basement was like an oven. He felt that if he continued to stay here, he would be roasted alive. However, it was already the crucial moment. Mo Fan was currently using the secret technique of a forging master to stir the boiling molten iron in the furnace. There were only a few pieces of moonstones left in the pile beside him. He absolutely could not stop at this moment. Once he stopped, all his previous efforts would be wasted. The heaven-ranked spirit weapon in his hands would be completely useless. However, it was really too hot. Xiaochen felt as though he was about to faint. He weakly pushed the bellows, as though he would collapse at any moment. Just at this moment, a cool breeze blew from behind Xiaochen. This cool breeze blew into Xiaochen's heart, dispersing the heat in his body. It dispelled the heat in his body. His heart felt refreshed, and his body felt extremely comfortable. Although he could not turn his head, Xiaochen could guess that this cool breeze came from Ao Jiao. A warm feeling welled up in Xiaochen's heart. This lass, who would have thought that even though her mouth was so venomous, she still had a little bit of conscience. That's right, other than conscience, this lass was really big. Thinking back to the scene from before, Xiaochen's body actually had a reaction. Damn it, what was I thinking about? Xiaochen smacked his head fiercely. His state of mind finally calmed down, and he continued to push the bellows with all his might. Time passed second by second, minute by minute. Every time Xiaochen was about to collapse, a cool breeze would blow from behind him, sweeping away all the fatigue in his body, filling him with energy once again. A large pile of moonstones was finally placed into the furnace. The surface of the boiling furnace was filled with molten moonstones. The entire surface of the furnace was filled with molten moonstones. Droplets of molten iron jumped up from the surface of the furnace. Mo Fan carefully observed the molten iron in the furnace. The surging heat waves did not seem to be able to cause him any trouble. The entire furnace was emitting the unique yellow glow of the moonstones. Mo Fan's expression was grave as he took out the peak-grade frost iron. A chi whirlpool appeared on his left hand, and the molten iron in the furnace started to spin rapidly. An even more horrifying heat wave spread out in all directions. Plop! When the molten iron was about to form an extreme whirlpool, Mo Fan quickly placed the peak-grade frost iron into the eye of the whirlpool, causing a small splash of molten iron to splash out. The peak-grade frost iron started to melt slowly. The yellow glow and the black glow of the frost iron slowly intertwined and fused. In the end, when the frost iron had completely melted, the yellow glow had completely disappeared, and the molten iron had turned into a pure black glow. Mo Fan saw that the time had come, and he shouted loudly. He placed his left palm on top of the furnace, and a huge suction force was emitted from his palm. The molten iron in the furnace started to churn unceasingly, gathering in the air. The sweat on Mo Fan's forehead dripped down continuously like rain. However, at this moment, he did not care about it at all. He looked at the molten iron gathering in his palm with a nervous expression. Finally, the molten iron in the furnace was completely sucked into the air, forming a metal ball the size of a soccer ball. It emitted a terrifying heat wave as it continuously spun. Pooh! At this moment, a resplendent light suddenly lit up in Ao Jiao's hand. In the next moment, a light shot out from her hand and flew into the metal ball. Mo Fan said in shock, "This is the Battle Sage Origin." The Battle Sage Origin was the strongest offensive origin chi in the world. A spirit weapon that possessed it could produce the strongest Battle Sage attack in the world. According to the legends, the Battle Saint Origin was split into 6 parts. Each part represented a different interpretation of the attacking technique. The 6 parts of the Battle Sage Origin were respectively embedded in 6 different subdivine weapons. It was said that if these 6 divine weapons were put together, the Battle Sage Origin would be able to form a new divine weapon. However, since ancient times, in the tens of thousands of years of history of the Tianwu continent, there had only been 10 divine weapons. As for the authenticity of this legend, no one knew if it was true or false. This was because no one had ever been able to put these 6 subdivine weapons together. Chapter 56. Mo Fan withdrew his thoughts and took out his left hand. The metal ball in the air gave off a resplendent glow as he squinted his eyes. Mo Fan took out a pair of golden silk gloves and slowly wore them on his left hand. It was unknown what material the golden silk gloves were made of. When Mo Fan wore them, he was able to hold the metal ball that was giving off a horrifying heat wave. Chi! Chi! The metal ball gave off intense friction when it touched the golden silk gloves. Green smoke came from it. It was clear how horrifying the heat of the metal ball was. However, the golden silk gloves did not melt. Mo Fan frowned as he held the metal ball. He quickly went to the metal platform at the side and placed the metal ball firmly on it. Boom! Suddenly, a golden hammer appeared in his right hand. There was a flash of light and the golden hammer struck the metal ball ferociously. One had to strike while the iron was hot. It was a very simple principle. Mo Fan held the golden hammer and continuously struck the metal ball. A visible light wrapped around the golden hammer. Every time it struck, there would be a resplendent golden light in the basement. The piercing golden light made it hard for people to open their eyes. Slowly, Mo Fan's entire body was covered in a layer of golden light. Haotian hammer. It really is the Haotian hammer. At this moment, Xiaoqin had nothing else to do. He leaned against the wall and looked at the golden hammer in Mo Fan's hand in disbelief. The Haotian hammer was the legendary golden hammer that could turn something rotten into something magical. It was a weapon that blacksmiths yearned for even in their dreams. Unfortunately, this was a power that came from the bloodline. It could only be obtained after awakening the Haotian martial spirit. It was impossible for outsiders to obtain it. This was completely out of Xiao Chen's expectations. He did not expect that there was a successor of the Haotian sect in this world. No wonder he could easily say that he wanted to forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. For a person who had awakened the Haotian hammer, as long as they had sufficient materials, it would be extremely easy to forge a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's heart surged. After working so hard for so long, if he could obtain a true heaven-ranked spirit weapon, it would definitely be worth it. Because Ao Jiao had injected the battle sage origin into the metal ball, it was several times harder than a regular metal ball. Only after being hammered a few thousand times did it start to slowly change shape. His left hand, which was wearing a gold-threaded glove, kept changing the position of the iron block. While his right hand was hammering the iron block, his left hand still had to control it precisely. It was difficult for an ordinary person to do two things at the same time. Usually, at this time, two people would cooperate. However, Mo Fan was able to do it by himself. This could only mean that the successor of the Haotian hammer had talent in this aspect. No one else could catch up to him. When the golden light flickered a few thousand times, the resplendent piece of metal finally had the rough shape of a saber. Mo Fan flicked his finger and shot the 6th-level lightning attribute demonic core into it. Bang! With a loud bang, the Haotian hammer ruthlessly struck the spot where the demon nucleus had just been embedded. An incomparably bright light lit up, and the whole basement was filled with golden light. Xiaoqin could no longer open his eyes. Then, the golden light disappeared, and a crackling electric light jumped up from the saber embryo. What a strong lightning attribute demonic core! Xiaoqin was secretly shocked. After shooting out the battle sage origin, a faint illusion appeared on Ao Jiao's body. She appeared to be extremely weak. Her gaze was fixed on the heavenly weapon that was about to take shape. The scene in front of her became blurry again. Under the scorching sun, in the desolate desert, a black-clothed man who was riddled with scars held a broken sword in his hand. He slowly walked on the yellow sand, leaving behind deep footprints. "Wooden Master, am I going to die soon?" Suddenly, a girl's voice came from the broken sword. The black-clothed man's body was filled with terrifying sword wounds. With every step he took, fresh blood would drip from his body onto the yellow sand. Under the terrifyingly high temperature, his fresh blood did not split open. The continuous footprints left behind a path of blood in this desolate desert. The scorching sun hanging high in the sky made his figure look extremely sorrowful. When he heard the voice coming from the sword, a determined expression appeared on his face. A smile appeared on his pale face as he said, "You will not die. There is still 1 more kilometer before we reach the Phoenix's Passion Palace. Their palace master owes me a favor. I will borrow their divine stones to seal you up. A faint sound came from the broken sword. The girl inside seemed to be crying. Her voice was filled with incomparable sorrow. The black-clothed man suddenly stopped. His pale face revealed a pained expression as he said slowly, "Are you crying? I am really useless. To think that I made you cry." Above the 9 heavens, in the Phoenix's Passion Palace, sang Mu, "My father is in closed-door training. It is not convenient for him to see you. You should leave. Do you not want to see me, or do you not dare to see me?" The black-clothed man said indifferently. "I gave you face, but you rejected it. You are a person who is about to die, and you actually came here to ask for divine stones. What a joke. Quickly scram. If you still don't leave, don't blame me for being ruthless." To think that the Phoenix's Passion Palace, which has been passed down for over 10,000 years, cannot even keep its promise. How unexpected. However, I will be taking this spiritual sense today. You are seeking death. You actually dared to kill me. Before the young palace master of the Phoenix's Passion Palace finished speaking, a bloody hole suddenly appeared between her eyebrows. She looked at Sang Mu with her eyes wide open. The young palace master had not expected that a person who was about to die would actually dare to attack her. Sang Mu looked calmly at the fallen young palace master of the Phoenix's Passion Palace. He said indifferently, "Since you do not wish to give it to me, I will take it myself." In Seven-Horn Mountain, when Sang Mu returned to his cave after snatching back the divine stones, he was already on his last breath. He had a resolute expression as he looked at the broken sword in his hand. A bright light flashed as the broken sword stabbed into the divine stones. "I hope that after 1,000 years, you will find a master who will not make you cry." Just as he finished speaking, the vermilion bird sacred seal that the Phoenix's Passion Palace master planted in his body exploded. There was a flash of intense flames, and a fiery red vermilion bird flew out of his body. The Thunder King, Sang Mu, turned into dust. Pu Chi. Mo Fan clapped his hands, and the netherworld yellow spring water in the large vat stirred up a wave, landing on the completed spirit weapon. After quenching the fire, the final step of the heavenly weapon was completed. When the netherworld yellow spring water scattered, a completely black saber suddenly appeared on the stone platform. Countless arcs of electricity were released from the saber. Everyone in the underground room could feel the horrifying might contained in the arcs of electricity. Xiao Qin even felt a slight tremble in his body. At the same time, dark clouds covered the sky above the smithy. Thunder rumbled unceasingly, and bolts of lightning crackled in the sky. This was the mysterious phenomenon of the birth of a heavenly weapon. Feeling the mysterious phenomenon, Mo Fan quickly said, "Young Master Xiao, quickly come over and claim ownership. Otherwise, this spirit weapon will become ownerless." Xiao Qin recovered his wits and quickly walked over. The spirit weapon on the metal platform had perfectly met Xiao Qian's requirements. The streamlined body of the saber seemed to be comparable to the heavenly locking moon beheading saber of the Grim Reaper. Looking at this newly born heaven-ranked spirit weapon, Xiao Qin suppressed the excitement in his heart and grasped it in his hand. In an instant, the arcs of electricity disappeared, and the black saber was filled with a reserved brilliance. The instant Xiao Qin grasped the saber hilt, the mysterious phenomenon outside the room immediately disappeared. The thick dark clouds scattered, and sunlight shone on the ground once again. What a good saber. I will call you Lunar Shadow. In the future, you will be my Lunar Shadow saber. I will not let you break again, Xiao Qin praised. Just at this moment, Xiao Qin suddenly discovered that the surrounding space started to distort. After a while, he discovered that he was on a desolate platform at the top of a mountain. Feeling like there was a pair of eyes staring at him from behind, Xiao Qin quickly turned his head around. He saw a pale, black-clothed man looking at him. Xiao Qin was startled. He had not felt anything when this man appeared behind him. Furthermore, he was just standing there quietly, giving Xiao Qin an unparalleled pressure. Xiao Qin quickly sent out his spiritual sense. However, he was shocked to discover that his spiritual sense could not be extended out of this space. However, he quickly calmed down. This was because he did not feel any killing intent from the man in front of him. "Who are you? Where is this place?" Xiao Chen asked that person suspiciously. That man looked at the lunar shadow saber in Xiao Chen's hand and slowly said, "Lunar shadow, good name." In the next moment, the saber in Xiao Chen's hand suddenly appeared in that person's hand. Xiao Chen was startled. Just as he was about to make a move, he discovered that his body seemed to be locked down. He could not move at all. He could not even close his slightly opened mouth. That person held the lunar shadow saber and made a strange posture. After that, he did not make any other moves. At the top of the mountain, the cold wind did not stop. It caused his hair to flutter, completely exposing his pale white face. Even though Xiao Chen was a man, he could not help but say in his heart that this was a man of unmatched talent. If he was on Earth, he would definitely be able to make those so-called male idols feel inferior. Slowly, Xiao Chen understood what the posture of the person in front of him meant. This was one of the stances of the Battle Sage Origins. It was an attacking technique with thousands of variations. This person seemed to want to hand over the Battle Sage technique to him, to let him comprehend something. The strength of the person in front of him was definitely extraordinary. He could not miss out on this opportunity. Xiao Chen quickly calmed himself down and observed carefully. When he completely immersed himself in it, Xiao Chen found it strange that the person in front of him seemed to have moved. However, he was clearly standing at his original position and did not move at all. It seemed like an incomparably profound saber technique appeared in his mind. However, in the next moment, the originally powerful saber technique turned into a destructive sword technique. However, it turned into a sword technique that could destroy heaven and earth, and after a while, it turned into a spear technique that could shake heaven and earth like a torrential storm. When Xiao Chen's mind became clear, the scene in front of him changed to that of the man holding the saber, not moving at all. Xiao Chen tried to simulate a killing move in his mind to attack the person in front of him. However, every time he got close, it would be broken by the saber. No matter what kind of attack he used, it would be broken. Furthermore, he used an attack that was hundreds or thousands of times more ferocious. One move to break 10,000 techniques, one saber to shake the world. Xiao Chen flicked his finger and suddenly discovered that he could move again. The lunar shadow saber also returned to his hand. Xiao Chen quickly said, "Many thanks for Senior's guidance. Might I ask for Senior's great name?" That person did not answer Xiao Chen's question. He just minded his own business and said, "Battle Sage Origins, attacking chi. There is no need to struggle with weapons or moves. One move to break 10,000 techniques, one chi to shake the world. Remember not to make her cry." After he said that, a huge thunder rock flew over from the foot of the mountain. That person jumped onto the thunder rock and flew far away. This strange space disappeared and the scene in the underground room returned to Xiao Chen's vision. Chapter 57. Are you alright, young Master Xiao? Mo Fan asked worriedly when he saw Xiao Chen in a daze. Xiao Chen recovered his wits and said, "I seem to have obtained an inheritance while I was in a daze." When Mo Fan heard this, he was startled. He quickly called Xiao Chen to explain the process to him. After a while, Mo Fan said, "That person could very well be the Thunder King from 1,000 years ago. I did not expect him to actually pass down the Battle Sage technique to you." The Battle Sage technique came from the legendary Battle Sage origin. It was a secret technique that the ancestors comprehended from the Battle Sage origin. It was one of the strongest martial techniques in the Tianwu continent. Back then, the Thunder King relied on it to sweep across the world, undefeatable. However, the Battle Sage technique was split into 6 parts when the Battle Sage origin split. Even the Thunder King only managed to learn the changing character formula. If he could learn 6 different Battle Sage techniques and combine them into the Battle Sage origin, he would be undefeatable. Thinking of the last words that person left behind, Xiaoqin said doubtfully, that person said something about not letting her cry again. I don't know what that meant. When Mo Fan heard this, he also did not understand. Xiaoqin suddenly remembered that Ao Jiao had not spoken for a long time. After obtaining the heavenly soldier, he was too excited and seemed to have forgotten about her. He could not help but feel guilty. The reason why he could obtain this heaven-ranked spirit weapon was all because of Ao Jiao. Xiaoqin quickly looked at her. With one look, he was astonished. He saw that Ao Jiao's body had already become so thin that only an afterimage remained. It looked like it would scatter at any moment. Xiaoqin was very anxious. He quickly rushed over and said, Hey, younger sister Ao Jiao, what's wrong? Don't scare me. There seemed to be traces of tears at the corner of Ao Jiao's eyes. She did not reply to Xiaoqin. Instead, she revealed a bitter smile. After being together for so long, Xiaoqin had never seen her smile. At this moment, he suddenly realized that she looked so beautiful when she smiled. Ao Jiao's hands were constantly changing hand seals, and her body became thinner and thinner. In the end, her hands formed a bright seal, and her body shone brightly. Hey, Ao Jiao, what are you doing? Xiaoqin was very anxious. He wanted to stop Ao Jiao, but he reached out and grabbed nothing. He directly passed over Ao Jiao's body. Ao Jiao's body finally disappeared completely, turning into a resplendent seal and entering the lunar shadow saber with a so sound. The light was withdrawn, there seemed to be some changes within the lunar shadow saber. Xiaoqin felt that a significant amount of the energy contained in the saber had disappeared. However, at this moment, he could not care about these problems. Xiaoqin asked Mo Fan, Big brother Mo, what's wrong with Ao Jiao? Why did she suddenly disappear? Mo Fan's expression turned grave, and he recalled the hand seals that Ao Jiao formed earlier. He said, hand over your lunar shadow saber and let me take a look. Xiaoqin handed the saber over. Mo Fan received it and looked at it carefully. After a long time, the grave expression on his face slowly disappeared. He smiled and said, Young Master Xiao, there is no need to worry. Ao Jiao only used a secret technique to nourish the sword with her body. She temporarily sealed this sword to a superior grade profound ranked spirit weapon. Xiaoqian's expression did not change for the better. He said, What do you mean? The saber is a small matter. I just want to know if Ao Jiao will wake up or not. Mo Fan explained, the biggest difference between a heaven-ranked spirit weapon and a subdivine weapon is the lack of a sword spirit. If an ordinary person wants to forge a subdivine weapon, they would need a divine-grade spirit stone. However, in this world, divine-grade spirit stones are very precious. Not to mention divine-grade spirit stones, even superior-grade spirit stones are very rare. However, Ao Jiao herself is a sword spirit. If she wants to raise this lunar shadow saber to a subdivine weapon, she would need to use herself to nourish the sword spirit. Because of this lunar shadow saber is temporarily lowered to superior grade profound ranked. However, it will definitely become a subdivine weapon in the future. Why did she do this? Xiaoqin could not understand. He held the lunar shadow saber in his hand again and said, How long will it take for her to wake up? Mo Fan said, That will depend on yourself. Xiaoqin did not understand and said, Depend on myself. What do you mean? Try brandishing the lunar shadow saber in your hand. Mo Fan said. When Xiaoqin heard this, he grasped the hilt of the lunar shadow saber and casually brandished it in the air. A cold light flickered on the saber's blade as it quietly streaked across the air, not making any sound. Xiaoqian's expression changed. The purple thunder divine incantation circulated rapidly in his body. The blue dragon martial spirit immediately established a connection with the ice on the lunar shadow saber. Electricity flickered on the saber. Every time he brandished it, there would be a roar of thunder. When Xiaoqin brandished it, there was even an indistinct blue dragon behind the saber. All this showed that although this lunar shadow saber was only a superior grade profound ranked spirit weapon, the energy contained within it was something that even a regular earth ranked spirit weapon could not compare to. However, the problem was that Xiao Qin did not hear the saber hum. No matter how much strength he used, the lunar shadow saber did not hum at all. What's going on? Am I not its master already? Xiao Qin was filled with doubts in his heart. Mo Fan said, although the lunar shadow saber recognized you as its master, you do not understand it. If there is a day when you can make the lunar shadow saber hum for you, Ao Jiao might be able to come out earlier. After the two of them chatted for a while, Xiao Qin expressed his intention to take his leave. Mo Fan did not try to hold him back and sent Xiao Qin to the door. After staying in the basement for a long time, the air was not very good. Now that he was on the street, the fresh air assaulted his nostrils. Xiao Qin took a deep breath. The spirit weapon was already formed. Although there were some ups and downs in the process, it basically fulfilled the requirements in Xiao Qin's heart. His purpose for coming out today was also accomplished. It was time to return. However, Xiao Qin kept feeling that something was missing in his heart. His mind kept replaying the hazy contact with Ao Jiao in the basement, as well as the final words the Thunder King said. Don't let her cry anymore. Not long after he left, Feng Feishua's figure slowly appeared in the small alley. She had rushed over after seeing the mysterious phenomenon. She wanted to see who was so lucky to actually obtain a heaven weapon. This brat is really hard to see through. Young miss, you invited Great Master Mo 3 times, but he was not moved. To think that he was actually willing to forge a heaven weapon for him. A hoarse voice came from the shadows behind Feng Feishue, speaking with some envy. A faint smile appeared on Feng Feishue's exquisite face. She played with a red hairpin in her hand and said with some playfulness, Tree, don't tell me you are thinking of killing me to snatch my treasure. The man who was called a tree said, there is more than one heaven weapon. There is no need to offend young miss for it. However, thinking about the mission that the clan head gave you, it looks like you will not be able to complete it. I have never liked to force others. The conditions that I gave were already generous enough. If you still do not agree, then there is no need. Furthermore, this time, the real mission had a great discovery. This trip was not in vain. It was already close to dusk. However, because Linlang Pavilion was holding a large-scale auction, there were still many people on the street. As Xiao Qin walked on the street, he suddenly saw a large group of people gathered a few hundred meters in front of him. Xiao Qin remembered that there seemed to be a dueling ring in front of him. At this moment, there was a large crowd gathered there. There was definitely a duel of great importance being held there. The people of the Tianwu continent were very valiant. These kinds of dueling rings could be seen everywhere. Furthermore, business was very good. On the street, there would often be people coming here to duel due to a disagreement. Or after they cultivated to a certain level, they would invite their enemies to duel there. They could also fork out money to challenge the arena master and win a large sum of money. Dueling was one reason, but the more important reason was to quickly become famous. The requirements for these kinds of dueling rings were very low, but they were very widespread. If one could win a few rounds in a row, they would be able to quickly make a name for themselves in the local area, attracting the attention of some large clans. Seeing that it was still early, and that the dueling ring was very lively, Xiao Qin decided to go and take a look. Is the Xiao clan full of trash like you? With just this bit of ability, you dare to call yourself the #1 person of Mo City's younger generation? If you entered the demonic beast forest, trash like you would not even last a day. Before he got close to the dueling ring, a voice came from inside. Xiao Qin was somewhat astonished. Mo City's #1 person of the younger generation. Could it be Xiao Jian? Why did he come here? And who was the person who spoke? Hearing the voice, it seemed familiar. Xiao Qin felt curious and quickly parted the crowd, quickly walking forward. Ignoring the curses of the people around him, Xiao Qin used his essence to force his way through the crowd. When he arrived before the dueling ring, he finally saw what was going on. The two people fighting on the dueling ring were the Haotian sword, Zhang He, and Xiao Jian. At this moment, Xiao Jian was covered in sword wounds, looking extremely miserable, but he was still bitterly holding on. On the other hand, Zhang He was dressed in white robes and was not injured at all. There were no visible wounds on his face, and he had a calm expression on his face. He could have ended the duel long ago, but he was clearly toying with Xiao Jian, suppressing the reputation of the Xiao clan. When Xiao Jian, who was in the dueling ring, heard Zhang He's insulting words, the expression on his face turned incomparably furious. He howled and raised his sword, rushing at Zhang He once again. Xiao Chen shook his head in his heart. Under such a situation, he still could not calm down, rushing over rashly in a hot-headed manner. This would only result in an even more cruel humiliation. Indeed, it was as Xiao Chen expected. Before Xiao Jian could even get close, he was struck by a few strands of sword qi from Zhang He, adding a few more wounds on his body. Zhang He flew forward and kicked Xiao Jian's body, causing him to fall back heavily. Zhang He mocked, "Even that trash from the Xiao clan is stronger than you. At the very least, he could force me to vomit blood. You can't even touch me." Hearing Zhang He say that he was not as good as Xiao Chen, Xiao Jian's face twitched. It was unknown where he got his strength from, but he suddenly rushed forward and struck Zhang He. Like a madman, he shouted loudly as he hugged Zhang He and retreated continuously. The sudden turn of events caused Zhang He to be caught unprepared. A furious expression appeared on his previously relaxed face. Countless strands of sword qi suddenly drilled out of his body, sending Xiao Jian flying with a bang. The sword qi crisscrossed and danced chaotically, surrounding Zhang He's body so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. After Xiao Jian got up, all of his attacks were unable to break through the barrier formed by the sword qi. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up as he carefully observed the barrier formed by the sword qi. Previously, his divine thunder break had been easily broken by this person using this move. At this moment, Zhang He's face finally turned serious. His gaze was as calm as water as he stared at Xiao Jian. He brandished his sword 3 times and 3 strands of tyrannical sword qi flew towards the 3 acupoints in Xiao Jian's dantian. Not good, he is going to cripple Xiao Jian, Xiao Chen thought to himself. He had to save him. Although he did not like this person, they were both from the Xiao clan. With his character, he would not be able to be apathetic and leave someone to die. Pooh! 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 A resplendent electric light shot out from Xiao Jian's hand. In the blink of an eye, an electric light flashed in the air, breaking through Zhang He's 3 strands of sword qi. After that, Xiao Jian's aura did not decrease as he flew towards Zhang He with a purple light. Chapter 58. After the purple lightning broke through the 3 strands of sword qi, its might had already decreased. With Zhang He's strength as a medial-grade martial master, it would be easy for him to dodge it. However, when he saw who it was, he immediately changed his mind. Pu Ci. The boundless sword qi danced chaotically in all directions. The resplendent lightning was quickly swallowed up by the sword qi, disappearing into the air. Xiao Chen, are you going to help this trash? This is breaking the rules of the arena, Zhang He smiled coldly as he looked at Xiao Chen. Xiao Jian, who was covered in injuries, found it difficult to even stand up. He bent his back and looked at Xiao Chen with a pained expression. He smiled with difficulty, "You are just trash, I do not need you to help me." Xiao Chen saw that he did not know what was good for him and could not be bothered with him. He said to Zhang He, "Whether it is breaking the rules or not, it is not up to you to decide. When you made your move earlier, it was clear that you wanted to kill him. I don't remember this arena holding a duel to the death. Arena master, don't you think so? If the eldest son of my Xiao clan's clan head dies in your arena, you will not be able to escape responsibility." Xiao Chen turned around and said to a middle-aged man. That arena master smiled awkwardly. Indeed, his arena did not have the qualifications to hold a duel to the death. If he wanted to hold such a duel, he would need to apply for a higher standard. Even so, the city rarely interfered in such matters. Even if he really did hold a duel, no one would really pursue it. That arena master actually had a strong background and was not afraid of Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen had picked on his shortcomings in front of everyone. He was in a difficult position. He waved his hand and said, "The two of you, carry young Master Xiao down and hand the spirit weapon in his hand to young Master Zhang. Young Master Zhang has won this duel." Xiao Jian was not satisfied, but he did not have any combat prowess. He was easily carried away by the two cultivators. Zhang he took the spirit weapon and tossed it to one of the people below. He smiled and said, "A superior grade yellow-ranked spirit weapon. Not bad, Zhang Wu will give it to you." That person was also a cultivator of the Zhang clan. When he suddenly obtained a superior grade yellow-ranked spirit weapon, he smiled excitedly, "Many thanks, young master. Let's go. I don't think the Xiao clan has any experts. They are just a bunch of trash." Zhang he turned around and was about to leave. That person called Zhang Wu also said, "That's right. What Mo City's #1 youth?" In the end, he could not even touch the corner of young master's clothes. He is simply bullshit. I heard that this Zhang he is practicing martial arts in the prefecture's Whitewood Academy. The person teaching him is a supreme elder of the Misty Sword sect. The Misty Sword sect's understanding of the Sword Tao is unparalleled in the great Qin nation. This Zhang he is the disciple of their supreme elder. No wonder he is so powerful. That's right. Actually, Xiao Jian is not weak either. He is already a martial master at such a young age. However, he could not even touch the corner of Zhang He's clothes. You guys don't know this, but what Zhang He sent out earlier was an authentic sword qi and not the release of essence. He has an innate spiritual martial spirit, the Haotian sword. That is why he is able to send out a sword qi that only a martial saint can. The Haotian sword, the spiritual martial spirit, and his teacher is a sword Tao master. It seems like no one in Mo City is a match for him. This promise of 10 years, Seven Horn Mountain is going to have a new owner. The people below were all discussing the earlier duel. When they saw that Zhang He was about to leave, they all expressed their opinions. It had to be said that some of the people here had their own unique opinions. When Zhang He heard these discussions, his expression changed slightly. However, he felt elated in his heart. In the prefecture's prefecture, his talent could only be considered good and not the best. However, in this small Mo city, he could be said to be unrivaled within the same generation. "You want to leave after beating someone up?" Xiao Chen suddenly said indifferently as he watched the two people leave. Zhang He was stunned for a moment before he turned around and smiled. "Xiao Chen, you can't be so naive as to challenge me, right?" "Why not?" Xiao Chen looked at Zhang He without any fear in his eyes. There was no fear in his eyes at all. Zhang He seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. He pointed at Xiao Chen's nose and said, "You can't be thinking that just because I praised you a little, you would think that you are a big shot, right?" Zhang Wu had obtained a spirit weapon and was eager to show off. He said, "First young master, this brat is reckless. He is only a medial grade martial disciple, yet he dares to challenge you. Let me go and test him out." Zhang He thought for a while. Zhang Wu was a peak superior grade martial disciple, and he even had a spirit weapon on him. As for Xiao Chen, he was only a medial grade martial disciple. Although he had a strand of strange flame, he did not have a spirit weapon, so he should not be a match for Zhang Wu. He said, "Sure, but you have to be careful of his martial spirit. It is a strand of flame that is very clingy." After Zhang Wu heard this, he immediately stood on the arena and shouted at Xiao Chen, "Xiao clan's trash, you are not worthy for my young master to make a move. I, Zhang Wu, can easily slap you to death." This Zhang Wu just obtained a spirit weapon. It looks like he wants to stand out. Although he is not comparable to Xiao Jian, he is a peak superior grade martial disciple. He is one of the top experts among the younger generation in Mo City. This Xiao Chen is really reckless. In the past, when he was still trash, anyone could bully him. Now that he has just condensed his martial spirit, he is already so arrogant. He is really reckless. What do you know? This Xiao Chen managed to advance to medial grade martial disciple in less than a month. His aptitude is definitely not bad. Even if his aptitude is not bad, he is only a medial grade martial disciple. Furthermore, he does not have a spirit weapon. It would be impossible for him to defeat Zhang Wu. Xiao Chen's gaze was like water. The discussions below did not disrupt his thoughts. He looked at Zhang Wu and said indifferently, "You are not my opponent. If you want to fight, then use your spirit weapon as the wager." Zhang Wu smiled, "What an arrogant brat. Fine, I agree to it. What if you lose? I will naturally take out a treasure of equivalent value to give it to you." The two of them went to the arena master and signed a duel agreement. This was not a duel to the death, so if one party clearly did not have any combat prowess, the other party was not allowed to kill him. If the other party gave up, the other party was not allowed to make a move. Otherwise, it would be considered a violation of the rules and they would lose the wager. The two of them stood at a corner of the arena and bowed to each other. The duel had officially begun. Xiao Chen did not want to be caught up in this duel. Later on, he still had to fight with Zhang He. That was the most important thing. This duel had to be concluded quickly, so he decided to make the first move. Seng. Before he went up to the arena, the purple thunder divine incantation in his body was already circulating rapidly. Xiao Chen was already at his peak condition. After he bowed, Xiao Chen stomped on the ground and leaped forward. His figure soared, and the wind whistled as he rushed over. What a fast speed! Zhang Wu was startled. He did not expect that Xiao Chen, who was an entire cultivation realm lower than him, would actually dare to make the first move. This was simply too bold. Zhang Wu quickly retreated 2 steps. He held his sword in his right hand and as he retreated, he sent out a sword light, trying to force Xiao Chen to retreat temporarily. Pu Ci. A large electric light appeared on Xiao Chen's arm. When Xiao Chen saw the dense sword light, a gleam flashed in his eyes. He did not have any intention of dodging. Using his finger as a sword, Xiao Chen's aura was awe-inspiring. Like a bolt of lightning, he pierced into the sword light. What is he trying to do? If he enters like that, one of his arms will be chopped off, the spectators below exclaimed. The corner of Zhang He's mouth curled up in a cold smile. Your speed is fast, but my sword light has already covered my entire body. If you dare to enter, I will make sure you leave your arm behind. When Zhang He saw this situation, he did not understand. Only a person who had tempered their physical body to the point that it was as tough as steel would dare to use their physical body to fight against a spirit weapon. This Xiao Chen had clearly not cultivated to such a level. Why did he dare to enter Zhang Wu's sword light with his bare hands? Xiao Chen's right hand had already touched the edge of the sword light. If it went any further, his entire palm would immediately be chopped off. From then on, he would truly become a cripple. However, just at this moment, Xiao Chen's right hand suddenly stopped. It moved like a torrential downpour. Even when it stopped, it did not seem to move at all. It stopped firmly in front of the sword light. Xiao Chen's right hand continuously changed hand seals. In an instant, it changed endlessly. When Zhang Wu saw that Xiao Chen had stopped, he knew that this was a clear opening. He immediately wanted to send the sword light forward to defeat him. Boom! A bolt of lightning appeared out of nowhere, striking down at Zhang Wu's head. This was the lightning descent that Xiao Chen had modified. Its might was much weaker than the original version, but it was more efficient. When it got close, it could be executed instantly. Zhang Wu had been confused by the illusion that Xiao Chen created earlier. Now that he discovered the danger, it was already too late for him to escape. He could only release all the essence in his body, trying to block this sudden bolt of lightning. Bang! The bolt of lightning traveled from the top of Zhang Wu's head to his feet. Because it was much weaker, he did not receive any serious injuries. However, his movements were temporarily paralyzed. While you are weak, I will take your life. This was Xiao Chen's usual technique. He immediately went forward and moved his fingers like a flower, poking Zhang Wu's chest 6 times. 6 purple flames pierced through Zhang Wu's chest and landed on the floor of the arena. After they penetrated half a meter deep, they suddenly dissipated. Because killing was not allowed in the arena, Xiao Chen did not leave the purple flames in Zhang Wu's body. Otherwise, Zhang Wu would have already turned into ashes. How is this possible? He actually defeated Zhang Wu in an instant. Indeed, that final flame was really tyrannical. Zhang Wu had already used his essence to cover his entire body, but it still managed to pierce through 6 bloody holes. However, he is really scheming. If Zhang Wu had been bewitched by him earlier, that bolt of lightning would not have struck him. The crowd below started to exclaim. No one had expected that Xiao Chen would be able to defeat Zhang Wu in 2 moves. Zhang He flew onto the arena and sealed a few of Zhang Wu's acupoints to stop the bleeding. After that, he took out some medicine and applied it on the wounds. After not seeing you for a while, your flames have become even more tyrannical. However, if you want to fight with me, you are still unable to take out an appropriate wager. Xiao Chen did not say anything. He received the spirit weapon that the arena master handed over and tossed it to Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian's injuries were mainly external. At this moment, he had already recovered significantly. He looked at Xiao Chen with a complicated expression. There was a myriad of emotions in his eyes. Seng. Xiao Chen suddenly took out the lunar shadow saber from his universe ring and slowly tossed it between the 2 of them. The lunar shadow saber smoothly entered the rocks of the arena. There was not a single sound as the saber easily entered, leaving only the handle outside. The sharpness of the lunar shadow saber could be seen clearly. Superior grade profound ranked spirit weapon. A fiery light flashed in Zhang He's eyes as he stared at the lunar shadow saber in the arena. Chapter 59. Since you want to give me this profound ranked spirit weapon, I will reluctantly accept it, Zhang He said arrogantly as he looked at the lunar shadow saber embedded in the rock with a fervent gaze. Xiao Chen waved his hand and sent out a strong force. The lunar shadow saber in the rock returned to his hand. He said, I want your shadow-bearing sword. Zhang He's expression changed. This shadow-bearing sword was also a high-grade profound ranked spirit weapon. It was their Zhang clan's heirloom. After he became a martial master, his clan had bestowed the shadow-bearing sword to him. Who would have thought that Xiao Chen would actually want to take it away today? This was simply wishful thinking. His Zhang clan's inherited item was not an ordinary spirit weapon. In the past few hundred years, many people had designs on it, but none of them succeeded. Zhang He smiled coldly. What arrogant words. You actually want my Qingying sword? Do you have the life to take it? This fellow must be crazy. By defeating Zhang Wu, he has already helped the Xiao clan gain some prestige. Yet, he still dares to challenge Zhang He. The difference between the 2 of them is an entire realm. This kind of difference is something that cannot be made up for with external items, unless he has a heaven-ranked martial technique or a divine weapon. Heaven-ranked martial technique? Is that possible? Even the Misty Sword sect only has one low-ranked martial technique as an inheritance. How could a small Xiao clan have one? Even if he did, given his cultivation level, using it would only result in mutual destruction. The 2 people on the stage ignored the discussions below. After the arena master signed the contract, the duel officially began. Both of their statuses were somewhat special, and both sides were filled with the smell of gunpowder. The arena master was afraid that the 2 of them would fight for real, so he stepped forward and said, I'll say it one more time. After one side forfeits, the other side must not make any more moves. Otherwise, I will personally take action. This arena master looked very ordinary, but in reality, in Mo City, he was the only person who dared to open an arena. They had to be at least a martial grand master. Otherwise, any random person would be able to defeat the arena master. If that was the case, there would be no need for the arena. The two of them didn't take the ring master's words to heart. They weren't stupid. They would never truly kill the other party. That would only cause the two clans to go to war earlier. At most, they would only cripple the other party's cultivation. In the arena, the two of them each stood in a corner, staring at each other. Both of them were brewing their killing intent, waiting for the moment when their auras were at their peak. Both of their auras clashed in the air. Although their bodies did not move, the invisible battle had already begun. However, what surprised Zhang He was that Xiao Chen's aura was actually not weaker than his. He was actually unable to completely suppress him. The people below also felt that it was strange. With Xiao Chen's cultivation, he was actually able to fight against Zhang He without being at a disadvantage. This battle might not be one-sided. Earlier, Xiao Jian, an inferior grade martial master, could not even touch the corner of my clothes. Do you think that you, a medial grade martial disciple, have a chance? Seeing that he was unable to suppress Xiao Chen with his aura, Zhang He decided to attack Xiao Chen with his words, hoping to find an opening. Xiao Chen was not a brainless person like Xiao Jian. Naturally, he knew what Zhang He was planning. He said mockingly, "When I was an inferior grade martial disciple, I could already make you vomit blood. Now that I have advanced to medial grade martial disciple, it is not impossible for me to kill you." Zhang He smiled faintly. "Do you think that the successors of those holy lands can go against the heavens and kill immortals? You have not even used your Haotian sword qi and you actually think that you are something. Whether I am something or not, we will only know after we fight," Xiao Chen said coldly, deciding to make the first move. After all, there was a difference in cultivation between him and Zhang He. If they fought for a long time, he would definitely be the one to reveal an opening. At that time, it was very likely that he would be killed in one strike. Lightning evasion. There was a thunderous roar and Xiao Chen suddenly appeared behind Zhang He. The lunar shadow saber created a black saber image in the air, hacking at Zhang He with lightning speed. In the instant that Xiao Chen disappeared from his original spot, Zhang He already felt that something was wrong. After he heard the thunder, he immediately understood where Xiao Chen had landed. Zhang He spread out his arms and bent his legs. With a ferocious leap, he left the ground. Behind him, the indistinct figure of a huge rock could be seen spreading its wings. This is the famous movement technique of the Misty Sword Sect's Supreme Elder, Heavenly Rock Spreading Wings. Legend has it that when it is practiced to great perfection, it can roam the four seas. Within a breath, it can fly 1,000 kilometers, a knowledgeable person below said. Earlier, because of this movement technique, Xiao Jian could not even touch the corner of Zhang He's clothes. I originally thought that the secret technique that Xiao Chen executed would be able to resolve Xiao Jian's predicament. Looks like it is not possible, someone sighed. Zhang He, who had leaped into the air, did not land on the ground. Instead, he strangely turned around and flew towards Xiao Chen like a huge bird. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. He was astonished in his heart, heavenly rock spreading wings. It is indeed powerful. It can actually allow a person to leave the ground for a short period of time. It looks like the legends about it are very detailed. Bang! There was no time to think. Zhang He's speed was extremely fast, and the two of them exchanged moves. Xiao Chen's cultivation realm was lower than Zhang He's. Although he could rely on the blue dragon martial spirit and its boundless strength, he was able to display a strength that surpassed his cultivation realm. He did not have a higher-ranked spirit weapon in his hands. However, Xiao Chen did not have a higher-ranked spirit weapon, so he could not bring out the full might of the Azure Dragon martial spirit. In terms of absolute strength, he was still slightly inferior to Zhang He. Furthermore, with Zhang He's heavenly rock spreading wings, this supreme movement technique sword strike contained a strength that was close to that of a martial grand master. When the saber and sword clashed, the huge force transmitted from the sword caused Xiao Chen to feel extremely strained. His body flew backwards. What was even more troublesome was that the Haotian sword qi from the sword had already surged into his body. The holy sword that had existed since ancient times had turned into sword qi that rampaged through Xiao Chen's meridians in a domineering manner. As he retreated, Xiao Chen dispelled this terrifying sword qi. When he retreated to the edge of the arena, with one foot in the air, he finally dispelled this sword qi. Hooking his feet to the ground, he somersaulted in the air and stood on the stage once more. The people below all exclaimed. They originally thought that he would be sent flying out of the arena by Zhang He's sword. They never expected that he would still be standing on the arena in the end. However, there were even more people who did not understand. It was such a good opportunity. Why did Zhang He not follow up with another sword strike? With that, he would be able to send Xiao Chen flying. They could not help but discuss it. Hearing the discussions below, Zhang He was indeed suffering in his heart. Earlier, although his sword qi had entered Xiao Chen's body, it was not able to withstand it. Although his sword qi had entered Xiao Chen's body, the electricity in Xiao Chen's saber had also entered his body. The electricity formed by the purple thunder divine incantation was not much weaker than his holy sword qi. If he did not dispel it, it would be a huge problem in the following battles. Again. After completely neutralizing the lightning glow, Zhang He shouted out explosively. The huge heavenly rock behind him actually let out a clear and bright cry. His figure streaked through the air, leaving behind a series of afterimages. A 2-meter-long sword light lit up on his sword. Using the speed of a waterfall, it carried a boundless aura as it flew towards Xiao Chen. The heavenly rock actually let out a cry. This is the second layer of the heavenly rock spreading wings. I did not expect him to have practiced this supreme secret technique to the second layer at such a young age. Indeed, this is too scary. Legend has it that the sword sage of the Misty Sword sect was able to make the heavenly rock let out a divine cry. Without even making a move, it could shatter a person's heart and lungs. Furthermore, Zhang He even activated the supreme might of the Haotian sword. With the holy sword and the heavenly rock, Xiao Chen will definitely lose. Facing the valiant Zhang He, the people below let out cries of alarm once again. Under such a strong might, everyone believed that Xiao Chen had no chance at all. This move of Zhang He's could even hold his own against a martial grand master. Even when the arena master saw Zhang He execute the second layer of the heavenly rock spreading wings, his expression changed. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave as he looked at the sword flying towards him. He knew he could not hold back anymore, so he gently flipped the lunar shadow saber in his hand. The lunar shadow saber started to spin rapidly and a surging qi surged out. Everyone in the surroundings felt their bodies tremble. The lightning on the sword lit up like a thunderbolt. The sky, which was already nearing dusk, seemed to have been ignited at this moment. The sun shone like fire, making it as bright as day. However, what was even more horrifying was the tyrannical qi that came from the saber. It was like the roar of a thunderous beast, or the arrival of a magnificent army. It was berserk and ferocious. Not good, this spirit weapon actually has a demonic core embedded in it. I'm afraid it is a martial king demonic beast. Everyone, retreat quickly. If the demonic qi leaks out, ordinary cultivators would bleed from their 7 orifices and die. This is too scary, there is actually a spirit weapon with a demonic core embedded in it. The crowd was extremely horrified and scattered in all directions. However, they did not go far. Instead, they stood far away, watching the battle with excitement in their eyes. Against Zhang He, who possessed the Haotian sword, the crowd originally thought that it would be a one-sided battle. They did not expect that Xiao Chen actually had a demonic weapon. There had not been such an exciting battle in Mo City for a long time, so naturally, they could not miss it. Using the movement technique, heavenly rock spreading wings, coupled with the ancient holy sword, the Haotian sword qi clashed violently against the lunar shadow saber with the rank 6 thunder rock embedded in it. Boom! When the electric light and the sword light clashed, a loud sound rang out from the arena. The crowd, who were far away, felt their eardrums tremble. It was simply too horrifying. A trace of blood leaked out from the corner of Xiao Chen's mouth. He took a heavy step back, leaving behind a 1-meter-deep footprint. It was clear what kind of pressure Xiao Chen was enduring. Zhang He's body flew backward, using the movement technique, heavenly rock spreading wings. He moved around in the air, dissipating the force from the lunar shadow saber. With a gentle push, Zhang He's body landed firmly on the ground. His clothes fluttered and his long hair fluttered. Coupled with his handsome face, he looked extremely elegant. This time, the two of them were actually evenly matched, unable to tell who had the upper hand. Suppressing the surging qi and blood in his body, Zhang He's eyes were as calm as still water. There was no longer any contempt in his eyes. He smiled faintly. I really did not expect that you would have such a demonic weapon. However, as the saying goes, rare treasures belong to outstanding talents. If this is all you have today, then I will be taking this demonic weapon. Shadow-bearing sword. Zhang He shouted loudly and casually tossed aside the sword in his hand. A sword image streaked across the sky. The shadow-bearing sword, which had been passed down in the Zhang clan for hundreds of years, appeared in Zhang He's hands. Chapter 60. Zhang He is actually going to use the Qingying sword. I heard that the origin of this Qingying sword is not simple. It is not an ordinary profound ranked spirit weapon. It's not just a rumor. It really has an extraordinary origin. This shadow-bearing sword hides a wisp of noble spirit. It is said that the ancestor of the Zhang family begged a sword saint for it. Shadow-bearing sword against lunar shadow saber. A clash between saber and sword. Neither is an ordinary weapon. I wonder who will win this time. Do you still need to say that? It must be Zhang He. His strength is originally higher than Xiao Chen's. Now that he has the help of a powerful weapon, how could he lose? There had never been such an exciting battle in Mo City before. When the crowd in the distance saw Zhang He use the shadow-bearing sword, the sounds of discussion became even more lively. Xiao Chen held his saber and stood upright. His body was as straight as a pillar. Electric light flickered on the blade of his saber. His eyes were burning with a strong desire to fight. Even though Zhang He had used the Qingying sword, he did not show any signs of fear. Gently stroking the Qingying sword, Zhang He said indifferently, "This Qingying sword contains a strand of righteous qi. It was left behind by a sword saint that the Zhang clan ancestors saved. In the past, that sword saint comprehended the righteous spirit and was unrivaled in the 4 seas. Although there is only a wisp of it in this sword, it can exist for thousands of years and never dissipate. Today, it is your honor to die under this sword. Noble spirit." Xiao Chen smiled coldly in his heart. Although this righteous qi was powerful, it was only something from the Holy Land. The battle sage origin that Ao Jiao left behind in the lunar shadow saber belonged to the Thunder King. The Thunder King had used 1/6 of the battle sage origins to forge the Thunderwood sword. It was unknown how many saints had been killed. If Zhang He wanted to use this as proof, Xiao Chen did not mind giving him a pleasant surprise. When Zhang He saw that Xiao Chen's aura did not change, he could not help but feel a little disappointed. This Xiao Chen's heart was really strong. No words could break his heart. As long as one's heart remained calm, one's aura would not diminish, and it would be hard for one to find a weakness, making it difficult for others to attack. Since there are no openings, then I will create one. Zhang He thought to himself, filled with pride. If he could not even deal with a medial-grade martial disciple today, he would not be able to do anything to him. In the future, he would definitely become the joke of the prefecture city's Whitewood School. It would be impossible for him to enter the Holy Land. Therefore, he had to win this battle, and he had to win it by a huge margin. It was a victory that left others speechless and convinced, leaving behind a shadow that could not be erased for the rest of their lives. Zhang He let out an explosive shout and the righteous qi within the shadow-bearing sword surged out. A killing chi that could pierce the heavens and split the earth spread out in all directions. Before the sword move was executed, the force of the sword had already been formed. The righteous chi existed eternally in the heavens and earth. Wherever it attacked, it could kill gods and exterminate devils. The Haotian sword chi follows my heart. Wherever the blade points, the chi will spread in all directions. The heavenly rock spread its wings, coming and going without a trace. It was as swift as the wind and as powerful as lightning. Kill! 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 In this instant, Zhang He had actually merged the three supreme techniques together. Coupled with the righteous chi of the Haotian sword and the exceptional movement technique, who in Mo City would be able to block him? In that instant, a strong wind blew and a boundless killing intent rushed towards Xiao Chen. The sword in Zhang He's hand lit up with a resplendent sword light. The 2-meter-long sword light was swallowing and spitting out a berserk sword chi. Pu ci. Xiao Chen had never seen such a fast sword before. In the previous moment, Zhang He's 2-meter-long sword light was still swallowing and spitting out. He did not even see Xiao Chen raise it, and in the next moment, the sword light had already arrived before him. Xiao Chen was incomparably astonished. At this moment, he actually felt a trace of the aura of death. For a long time, his greatest reliance was the heaven-ranked martial technique, dragon subduing slash. Even if the situation was at its worst, as long as he used the blue dragon, even 10 Zhang He's would turn to ashes. However, the situation in front of him was not good. Zhang He's speed was very fast. He was afraid that he would not even have the chance to use the blue dragon before he would be killed. At this moment, he did not have much time to think. The sword light had already touched the hair on his forehead. If he did not think of a way, he would be severely injured. There was no chance to dodge, so he could only receive it head-on. Heavenly Lightning Shield. At the most critical moment, at the moment of imminent peril, Xiao Chen used the Heavenly Lightning Shield. When he was only an inferior-grade martial disciple, this Heavenly Lightning Shield was able to block the attack of a profound-ranked martial technique. At this moment, he had already advanced to medial-grade martial disciple. His essence was more than twice as dense as before. Thinking about it, the defense of the Heavenly Lightning Shield should have doubled as well. Bang! The sword light struck the defensive shield, flickering with electric light, giving off a loud sound. A huge force came from it. Xiao Chen, who was within the shield, was shaken to the point that his internal organs shifted positions. He vomited another mouthful of blood. His internal organs shifted positions. If it was a regular cultivator, they would have lost their combat prowess after receiving such an injury. However, Xiao Chen's body had been tempered by a large amount of spiritual energy. Furthermore, there was the continuous power of the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. He did not have to worry too much about it and could continue fighting. Zhang He looked at the Heavenly Lightning Shield and frowned slightly. He did not know what kind of strong defensive martial technique this was. The cracks on the shield actually started to slowly mend. What kind of strong defensive martial technique is this? In front of the righteous chi, break for me. Flight on wings, one-line chop. Zhang He shouted lightly. It was as though he had merged with the sword. The brilliance of this sword was reserved, there was no color, no sound of the wind, no sword chi. It struck Xiao Chen's Heavenly Lightning Shield so casually. There was no sound, but the electric light on the shield quickly dissipated. Xiao Chen felt like he had suffered a heavy blow and vomited another mouthful of blood. Xiao Chen quickly formed hand seals with his hands. 2 of the 5 white clouds beside the blue dragon all scattered, turning into countless amounts of essence and pouring into the Heavenly Lightning Shield. The light on the shield became dazzling once again. Flight on wings, disordered dance of 1,000 years. Zhang He did not feel discouraged. He executed another powerful sword technique. Compared to the previous sword technique that was simple, this sword technique was extremely magnificent. The boundless sword chi was like a chaotic autumn rain, striking the Heavenly Lightning Shield. Zhang He's figure quickly changed positions in the air. Every time he changed positions, there would be 20 sword chi striking the heavenly lightning shield. He changed positions in the air a total of 81 times, sending out a total of 1,620 sword chi. Every sword chi had half the might of the one-line chop. Xiaoqin supported the heavenly lightning shield with all his might. Blood flowed continuously from his mouth. However, there was no sign of giving up in his eyes. He released his spiritual sense and did his best to capture the trajectory of Zhang He's movements, as well as the charm of his moves. Even though he was severely injured and was at a huge disadvantage, his heart was not in a mess. His aura did not decrease, and his weakness was not revealed. Flight on wings, I remember that it was a martial technique created by a sword sage from the Whitewood School. I did not expect this Zhang He to have learned it. Although it is only the first 2 moves, it is sufficient to show disdain for those of the same generation. That Xiaoqian is not simple either. Under the pressure of the righteous qi and the Haotian sword qi, he is still able to last until now. This is also because Zhang He did not truly merge the heavenly rock-spreading wings, the righteous qi, and the Haotian sword qi together. It only has the form but not the spirit. Perhaps that sword could even easily destroy a peak martial grand master. Look at that Zhang He, it looks like he is about to execute the 3rd move of flight on wings. That's impossible, he is so young. Could it be that he comprehended the 3rd move of flight on wings? The crowd in the distance let out cries of surprise again. Today's battle was an eye-opener for them. Not only Zhang He, but even Xiaoqin gave them a pleasant surprise. Flight on wings, moon bright like fire. Regardless of how shocked the crowd was, the 3rd move of flight on wings, moon bright like fire, was executed by Zhang He in the end. In the arena, Zhang He stood 20 meters away from Xiaoqin. He pointed his sword at the sky. The originally dusky sky suddenly turned incomparably dark. A full moon slowly rose up. The bright moon hung high in the sky, giving off a resplendent light. A mysterious phenomenon actually appeared. What rank of martial technique is this flight on wings? Why is it so horrifying? No one had expected that the 3rd move of flight on wings would actually cause a mysterious phenomenon. Suddenly, a faintly discernible figure appeared above the full moon. It was as though he came from beyond the heavens. He held a spiritual sword in his hand. Under the contrast of the full moon, the faintly discernible feeling gave people the impression that an immortal had descended. Zhang He, who was in the arena, gently brandished his sword, matching the figure in the sky. Suddenly, he pointed his sword at Xiaoqin, who was in the heavenly lightning shield. Xiaoqin felt as though his heart had stopped beating. The surrounding space was pitch black, and everyone had disappeared from his sight. There was no Zhang He, no arena master, no crowd. There was only the boundless darkness and the loneliness that filled the sky. This was a very frightening feeling. Those who were not in the middle of it would not be able to experience it. Xiaoqian's heart pounded wildly. At this moment, his heart seemed to waver. Just at this moment, the blue dragon martial spirit in his body gave a light shout. The pitch-black space immediately shattered into pieces. The space returned to its original state. Xiaoqian's heart finally stabilized. Zhang He's eyebrows twitched. Clearly, he felt that Xiaoqian's originally wavering heart had actually stabilized again. However, at this moment, he did not have the time to think too much. The bright moon had already risen, there was no chance for him to stop. Break for me. Zhang He shouted loudly and pointed his sword angrily at Xiaoqin. The figure in the sky also felt Zhang He's anger. At the same time, he shouted loudly, "Break for me! Break! Break! Break!" In an instant, the entire place was filled with Zhang He's angry roar. A supreme pressure spread out in all directions. There seemed to be an unparalleled might in the voice, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. This is an immortal sound, an immortal sound. This moon bright like fire can actually emit an immortal sound. In the crowd in the distance, the weaker cultivators were directly knocked unconscious by this immortal sound. Even the stronger ones did not feel good. The immortal sound is already so terrifying. In that case, how powerful will the next sword move be? Someone in the crowd said with a trembling voice. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as still water. The supreme technique in the compendium of cultivation, the purple thunder divine incantation, circulated frantically. His essence was being expended without any regard for his life. His body actually emitted a faint purple glow. Zhang He stood where he was, not moving forward at all. He simply aimed his sword at Xiao Chen, chopping down from a distance of 20 meters. What is he trying to do? Even if it is a martial saint expert, after the sword chi flew out 20 meters, its might would be greatly reduced. By doing this, he will not be able to break my heavenly lightning shield. Xiao Chen thought suspiciously in his heart. When he raised his head to take a look, his face revealed an extremely horrified expression. He finally understood what Zhang He was trying to do. The figure in the sky actually followed Zhang He's sword and approached him from afar, chopping down at him ruthlessly. The bright moon was like fire, resplendent in the sky. There was someone beyond the heavens. When a sword immortal arrived, how could mortals block it? Chapter 61. There was a loud explosion, and the place where Xiao Chen was standing on the arena shattered into pieces and dust. A 2-meter deep hole appeared in the arena made of heavenly mountain stone, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. This moon bright like fire is very scary. It actually managed to create a big hole in the arena made of heavenly mountain stone. This person's future is limitless. In the past, the sword sage of white would school used the might of his sword to kill Emperor Wu. Indeed, the rise of the Zhang clan can already be seen clearly. After this battle, the power structure of Mo City will change completely. What do you guys think? Can this Xiao Chen withstand this move? Nonsense, do we even need to say that? Even the heavenly mountain stone has a big hole in it. The way I see it, that brat might not even have a corpse left. What a pity for that powerful demonic weapon. When Zhang He executed flight on wings, moon bright like fire, the crowd in the distance thought that the battle was already over. Although they felt that it was not enough, today's battle was a feast for their eyes. In the future, they would have sufficient capital to flaunt. The light scattered and the bright moon slowly descended. Zhang He's eyes were like a stream of water as black wind danced in the air. This move exhausted a large amount of his essence and the origin energy of the Haotian sword. If he still could not break the heavenly lightning shield, then he had no other methods. However, was there such a possibility? Obviously not. The corner of Zhang He's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He carried the shadow-bearing sword and walked towards the hole. His steps were relaxed and his expression was relaxed. However, he did not let down his guard at all. This Xiao Chen was merely a medial-grade martial disciple, yet he had given him too many surprises. It was hard for him to remain calm. Until the very last moment, he absolutely could not relax. At the bottom of the huge hole, Xiao Chen's clothes were already in tatters. He lay on the ground like a dead man. His eyes were tightly shut, and there were 2 traces of blood at the corners of his eyes. Blood was still flowing from his nose and mouth. His left hand was tightly clenched, as though there was something in it. The lunar shadow saber in his right hand was stabbed into the ground. Zhang He heaved a sigh of relief. No matter how he looked at it, Xiao Chen was severely injured and would not be able to fight anymore. Zhang He smiled gently and jumped down. He walked to the front of the lunar shadow saber and said indifferently, I, Zhang He, will accept this demonic weapon. Just as his hand was about to touch the saber hilt, Xiao Chen's right hand suddenly moved. It slowly pointed at Zhang He and his tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. His eyes emitted a blood-red glow, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Coupled with his blood-stained face, he looked exceptionally terrifying. Zhang He's heart tightened as he felt a dangerous aura. At this moment, the movement technique of the heavenly rock spreading wings was displayed to its limits. He was like a huge bird soaring into the sky, instantly returning to the arena. Behind him, a strand of purple flame soared up like a huge python, closely following him. If he had been half a second slower, he would have been hit by the purple flames, and the consequences would have been unthinkable. The purple flames brushed past him from behind, and a spark landed on his hair. Instantly, there was a burnt smell. Most of his elegant long hair had been set on fire. Zhang He circulated his essence, and his hair instantly stood up. Every single strand of hair that stood up was burning with a purple flame. They slowly moved downwards, and in the next moment, they would reach his head. Shua! Zhang He decisively chopped off all the burning strands of hair, and all the hair that stood up fell down. The originally elegant long hair had disappeared, and only half of it was left. There was also a burnt smell coming from it. At this moment, Zhang He's expression was extremely unsightly. The expression of someone eating shit was probably what Zhang He looked like right now. When the crowd in the distance saw Zhang He jumping down in a magnificent manner, they all thought that he would come out with the lunar shadow saber and end this battle. After a while, they were astonished to discover that Zhang He had jumped back up in a sorry state. His hair was suddenly set on fire, and his expression was as unsightly as if he had eaten shit. No one could guess what had happened. Did you guys feel it? The chi and blood of the person below seemed to be flourishing. That's right, I felt it too. This seems to be the scene before a breakthrough. It can't be. Could it be that after this person escaped death, his cultivation actually rose to superior grade martial disciple? Inside the hole, Xiaoqin casually tossed aside the inferior grade spirit stone that he had absorbed in his left hand. The surface of the spirit stone had lost all its luster, and it looked no different from a normal stone. It no longer had any value. Feeling that the medicinal energy of the blood-replenishing pill that he had consumed earlier had completely dissipated, Xiaoqin heaved a sigh of relief. Moon bright like fire was simply too scary. His heavenly lightning shield, which was comparable to an inferior grade earth-ranked martial technique, was like a thin piece of paper in front of him. It was completely useless. The figure that flew in from the sky was like an immortal descending. The might of his sword completely shattered the purple thunder divine incantation, causing him to bleed from his 7 orifices. If it were not for the blood-replenishing pill in his mouth, even with the heavenly lightning shield and the purple thunder divine incantation supporting his body, he would not have the strength to stand up. Xiaoqin extended his spiritual sense and saw Zhang He standing in the arena. The corner of his mouth curled up into a gentle smile as he took out another medicinal pill from his universe ring and swallowed it. This was the essence swallowing pill. After consuming it, it could increase the user's strength by several times in a short period of time. It was extremely horrifying. After absorbing the inferior grade spirit stone, Xiaoqin easily reached the peak of superior grade martial disciple. Now that he consumed the essence swallowing pill, his strength immediately soared to the realm of a medial grade martial master. At this moment, Xiaoqian's absolute strength was already comparable to Zhang He's. With the help of the blue dragon martial spirit, his strength was even stronger than Zhang He's. The crowd in the distance could only feel that Xiaoqian's strength was rising continuously. However, Zhang He, who was in the arena, could feel the aura pressing down on him. It was surging and surging, each wave stronger than the one before. Boom! Xiaoqin stomped on the ground and leaped up ferociously, standing on the arena once again. The lunar shadow saber in his hand flickered with electricity. A boundless evil aura surged out in all directions, making him look like a demon from hell. This was the first time Zhang He revealed a grave expression. It was possible that he would be defeated by Xiaoqian's saber. Such a thought unconsciously appeared in his heart. Flight on wings, one-word sword formula. Zhang He could no longer endure the pressure from Xiaoqian's evil aura. He took the initiative to make the first move. It was extremely simple and had a reserved light. However, it contained a boundless might. Combined with the exceptional movement technique, heavenly rock spreading wings, he hacked at Xiaoqin ruthlessly. Xiaoqin smiled coldly. Previously, he had been observing Zhang He's movements. Now that his strength had increased, he was able to sense Zhang He's movements. Now that his strength had increased, Xiaoqin could clearly see the movement technique that Zhang He was originally proud of. He could instantly see through Zhang He's movements. Flight on wings, one-word chop. Under Zhang He's astonished gaze, Xiaoqin actually executed the same sword technique as Zhang He. It was also extremely simple and had a reserved light. Xiaoqin moved later but arrived first. He dodged Zhang He's attack and went straight for his heart. This. How can this be? How can he know flight on wings? He only took a look. Zhang He was greatly astonished and his movements became chaotic. He was very clear on the might of the one-word chop. He quickly withdrew his sword to defend, wanting to block this sword. He had studied this flight on wings sword technique for many years. He had an incomparably deep understanding of it. After a moment of panic, he quickly thought of a way to block it. He moved his feet slightly and held his sword horizontally in front of his chest. The body of the sword was protecting his heart. He had calculated the angle of Xiaoqian's attack accurately. Dang! The saber and sword clashed, giving off a clear clashing sound. The huge force that came from the lunar shadow saber exceeded Zhang He's expectations. The sharp offensive chi instantly broke his perfect footwork. The lunar shadow saber, which contained a rank 6 demonic core, emitted a surging electric glow. It passed through the shadow-bearing sword and entered his body. The electric glow, which was filled with a ruthless chi, rampaged about in Zhang He's body. All the essence that blocked it instantly collapsed. Pooh! Zhang He felt something sweet in his throat and vomited a mouthful of blood. His body flew back 5 steps. He looked at Xiaoqian in astonishment and said in disbelief, "You actually merged unparalleled on wings and one-word chop into your own saber technique. How is this possible?" Unparalleled on wings, disordered dance of 1,000 years. Xiaoqian did not reply Zhang He's words. He immediately executed the second move of unparalleled on wings. His body rapidly changed positions in the air and a saber light shot towards Zhang He. Sword chi crisscrossing. Zhang He shouted loudly and used the sword technique that he used to neutralize the divine thunder break earlier. This move could be used for both offense and defense, it was the martial technique that he was proud of. Countless sword chis protected Zhang He's body, dancing in the wind. It was airtight, blocking all of the attacks outside of his body. Xiaoqian did not have a holy sword martial spirit. Naturally, he could not use sword chi when he was still a martial master. Thus, he used the Battle Sage Origins changing character formula to imitate this disordered dance of 1,000 years. However, he was unable to use sword chi and could only use saber lights made from essence. Even so, under the unparalleled offensive chi of the Battle Sage Origin, any defensive martial technique would reveal an opening. Furthermore, he had the Blue Dragon martial spirit. The might of this saber light was not much weaker than Zhang He's sword chi. After Zhang He's sword chi blocked 1,000 saber lights, it was finally completely defeated. The remaining 200 saber lights struck Zhang He's body without any fear. Zhang He cried out in pain and groaned continuously. The clothes that were still intact on his body were torn into shreds by the saber lights. Hundreds of scarlet wounds appeared on his skin. Bang! After the disordered dance of 1,000 years was executed, Xiaoqian, who was about to land, kicked Zhang He, causing him to fall to the ground. After that, he turned around and landed firmly on the ground. Don't think that just because you used a secret technique to raise yourself to the same realm as me and learn flight on wings, I will not be able to do anything to you, Zhang He, who was on the ground, said ruthlessly as he looked at Xiaoqian. Holy sword, Haotian. He used his finger as a sword and pointed it at Xiaoqian. A resplendent holy sword appeared in front of him and a golden light lit up the sky. The surroundings were filled with golden light. This is the holy sword's origin. At this moment, he actually used the origin of the Haotian martial spirit. Indeed, it is too dangerous. If the holy sword were to break, all his cultivation would be destroyed and he would become a cripple. The crowd exclaimed once again. This Zhang He actually wanted to bet all his cultivation to fight against Xiao Chen. Unparalleled on wings, moon bright like fire. Xiao Chen looked at Zhang He calmly. The battle sage origin slowly simulated the third move of the unparalleled on wings and the mysterious phenomenon appeared again. The sky was pitch black and a full moon slowly rose up again. However, this full moon did not have a nimble figure. It only hung high up in the sky, radiating light in all directions. As for the person from beyond the sky that did not appear, Xiao Chen understood in his heart. His comprehension of the way of the sword was far from sufficient. This moon bright like fire sword move could only display its form and not its spirit. However, Xiao Chen had his own methods. The battle sage origin was the strongest offensive chi in the world. No one could block it. Since he was unable to comprehend the intricacies of the sword, then he would use its absolute might. He would use force to break through technique, deciding the world with one saber strike. With a swing of the saber, the full moon in the sky slowly descended, violently crashing into the Haotian holy sword in Zhang He's hands. Chapter 62. Boom! The full moon landed on the arena, giving off a loud sound. This time, the moon bright like fire was much stronger than the one Zhang He had used earlier. The huge arena was shattered into countless pieces. A huge shockwave spread out in all directions. Some of the people who were standing closer to the arena were struck by the shattered pieces. Their chi and blood surged, and they suffered significant injuries. This was truly an undeserved calamity. The dust on the arena danced in the air. The people who were far away could not see what was happening. They could not help but feel anxious when they saw what was happening. What a strong moon bright like fire, it is even stronger than the one Zhang He executed. There is dust everywhere. Who won? Although they wanted to know the result, they were afraid that something unexpected would happen. They did not dare to rush forward. The people who were injured by the shattered pieces were a living example of this. After a long time, when the thick dust finally dispersed, everyone could clearly see the situation on the arena. The 2-meter-tall arena made of heavenly mountain stones no longer existed. All that was left were countless pieces of rubble. Zhang He was lying on the ground, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. The shadow-bearing sword in his hand had already disappeared. The arena master standing at the side had an indescribable dispirited expression on his face. The arena that he had painstakingly built was gone, just like that. Although he could obtain 1/10 of the wager as a commission, it was far from being able to compare to the damage to the arena. The situation was clear at a glance. Everyone knew that Xiao Chen had won this duel. He had defeated a medial-grade martial master, Zhang He, as a medial-grade martial disciple. Such news would definitely shock Mo City. It would even spread far and wide in Chizi County. Xiao Chen, who was an entire realm lower than him, had actually defeated Zhang He. This was definitely explosive news. This battle had also completely rid Xiao Chen of the reputation of being trash in Mo City. Everyone could predict that an unparalleled genius had appeared. While everyone was discussing this, there was only one person standing there with a complicated expression on his face. He was Xiao Chen's elder brother, Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian held a nidin in his hand. That was the nidin of the rainbow flame python. Before Xiao Chen left, he had tossed it to Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian's heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. He really wanted to throw away the rainbow flame python's inner core. He didn't want to accept Xiao Chen's charity, but he really couldn't bear to do it. 3 days later, in the Xiao mansion. In Xiao Chen's yard, Bao quietly asked, "Second young master, the first elder sent someone to get you again. Are you going to reject him again?" Xiao Chen recovered from his cultivation state and smiled bitterly in his heart. "You don't have to be so anxious. You've been urging me more than 10 times in 3 days." After the duel that day, although Shao Chen barely managed to defeat Zhang He, the time limit of the essence swallowing pill was up. Very soon, the essence swallowing pill would cause a backlash. He was worried that he would be intercepted and killed in the middle of his journey. After taking away the Qingying sword, he immediately felt it. In order not to let the side effects of the cloud-swallowing pill leave a hidden danger in his body, he had to use the cloud-swallowing pill. Shao Chen had not gone out for the past 3 days. He had been refining the remnant essence of the cloud-swallowing pill in his body. Furthermore, he had comprehended many things in that battle. Shao Chen did not want anyone to disturb him, so he chose to close his doors and refuse to see anyone. Only now did he completely digest the essence of the cloud-swallowing pill. However, there were many things that he had comprehended in that battle that he had yet to comprehend. He could only think about them in the future. If he did not go out now, the first elder would definitely send someone to barge in. Thinking of this, Shao Chen said to the door, "Bao, go and inform them that I will be out soon." After tidying up his clothes, Shao Chen thought about how to deal with the first elder. Then, he opened the door and took a deep breath. Slowly, he walked towards the first elder's yard. Along the way, all the Shao clan disciples that he met looked at him with a completely different expression. The gossip that he often heard in the past no longer existed. Everyone's expressions were the same as they appeared on the surface, they all held reverence for Shao Chen. Shao Chen did not really care about the attitude of the Shao clan disciples. He took large strides forward and soon arrived at Shao Chang's yard. Shao Chang and Shao Yulan sat at the stone table in the yard. Shao Yulan was still as beautiful as ever. Every time he saw her, he would be moved. "Cousin Shao Chen, now that you are famous, you start to play cards. You are not even willing to meet your cousin," Shao Yulan said half-truthfully when she saw Shao Chen walk over. Shao Chen first bowed to the first elder before saying from under the table, "Cousin Yulan, I am sorry. I have been recuperating for the past few days. It is not convenient for me to meet anyone." When Shao Yulan saw Shao Chen apologizing seriously, she hurriedly said, "I was just joking with you. Everyone knows that you are recuperating." Ever since Shao Chen entered, Shao Chang's gaze had been fixed on Shao Chen, never leaving him. At this moment, he took over the conversation. "Second young master, are there any major problems with your body? There are still some rank 7 herbs in the Shao clan's dispensary. Don't bear everything on your own." The Shao clan had been in charge of 7-Horn Mountain for over 100 years. It was not strange for them to have a few rank 7 herbs. Shao Chen said, "There are no major problems. Thank you First Elder for your kind intentions. Then I am relieved. I do not have to worry about the trial of Gloomy Forest in 2 days." After Shao Chang said that, he changed the topic. "What exactly did you obtain from the Thunder King's cave? Can you tell me in detail?" Others might not be able to figure out the reason for Shao Chen's sudden burst of combat prowess. However, Shao Chang could easily link it to the Thunder King's cave. Shao Chen's expression did not change, he had already guessed that the first elder would ask this. He placed the lunar shadow saber on the table and said, "This is the Thunder King's Thunderwood sword from back then. I reforged it into a profound ranked spirit weapon. I obtained the inheritance of the Thunder King from it." Shao Chen's words were half true and half false, no one could find any flaws in it. Following that, he made up a story about how he obtained the inheritance. After listening to it, Shao Chang believed this answer. He cautiously said to Shao Chen, "Don't tell anyone about you obtaining the inheritance of the Thunder King. Otherwise, it will bring you a disaster. This matter is very important. My Shao clan might even prosper because of it." The Thunder King was the most famous Emperor Wu in the past 1,000 years. His fame in the continent could be said to be very widespread, deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Many people yearned for his inheritance. If they were to know that Shao Chen obtained the inheritance of the Thunder King, then Shao Chen would be hunted down endlessly. Shao Yulan picked up the lunar shadow saber on the table and examined it carefully. She praised, "This saber is really cousin's lucky item. Back then, it helped us escape from the cave. Now, it helped cousin obtain the inheritance of the Thunder King. It is truly a good saber. Xiaoqin smiled in his heart. Although cousin Yulan was very talented in combat, her thoughts were still very pure. She actually described such a strong demonic weapon as being lucky twice. He suddenly thought of something and took out the Qingying sword from the universe ring. He handed it to Xiao Yulan and said, "Cousin Yulan, back then, you gave me all those moonstones. Now, I'm giving you this Qingying sword as compensation." When Xiao Yulan heard this, she smiled and said, "I do not dare to take this sword." The Zhang clan's clan head came a few times in the past few days, wanting to redeem this sword. We absolutely cannot let them redeem it. How can we let go of something that is already in our hands? Xiaoqin said. The material of this Qingying sword was forged from top-notch frost iron. Furthermore, it contained a trace of righteous qi. However, because it did not contain a large amount of moonstones, its rank could not be raised. Its actual value was very high. Honestly speaking, Xiaoqin was a little reluctant to give it to Xiao Yulan. After he cultivated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation to the second layer, he had always wanted to refine a protective magic treasure. However, he was unable to do so due to a lack of materials. If he did not give this sword to Xiao Yulan, he felt that he could refine a pretty good magic treasure. If he gave it to the Zhang clan, it would be too much of a loss. When Xiao Yulan saw Xiaoqian's nervous expression, she smiled tactfully. Her pretty face was like a flower, completely devoid of her usual cold expression. She said, "Don't worry. Father's intentions are the same as yours. I will never let go of something that is already in my hands. As long as it is something that you give me, I will dare to use it." Xiaoqin blushed with shame in his heart. Cousin Yulan's personality seemed to have undergone a huge change. She no longer had the cold and distant attitude that she had when they first met. Today, she even joked with him twice. The tragic thing was that he did not realize it. However, he did not know the thoughts of a girl. When joking with someone, it depended on who the person was. If the other disciples of the Xiao clan saw the famous icy beauty of the Xiao clan chatting so happily with Xiaoqin, they would definitely be shocked. The three of them chatted for a long time about the trial of Gloomy Forest. Xiao Chang told them about his experiences in the trial of Gloomy Forest without holding anything back. Before they left, something unexpected happened to Xiaoqin. The first elder, Xiao Chang, asked about the martial spirit in Xiaoqian's body again. Furthermore, he requested to check it out personally. This caused the doubts that Xiaoqin had long ago to resurface. Could it be that the blue dragon martial spirit really had some unspeakable secret? When Xiao Chang's consciousness entered Xiaoqian's body, Xiaoqin hid the blue dragon martial spirit in his body into the white clouds. He used his spiritual sense to imitate a purple flame, barely concealing it from Xiao Chang. Xiaoqin returned to his room filled with doubts. He laid on the bed and thought about this question. Why did the first elder care so much about his own martial spirit? Xiao Jian's blue dragon martial spirit had already disappeared for 1,000 years. It was not strange for them to be cautious. However, Xiaoqin could feel a sense of fear from the first elder's attitude. That was fear of the blue dragon martial spirit. Every time he knew that the martial spirit in his body was not the blue dragon martial spirit, the first elder's attitude would become much more relaxed. What secret was this blue dragon martial spirit hiding? Just at this moment, Bai suddenly jumped out from the spirit blood jade that Xiaoqin wore on his chest. It looked around for Ao Jiao. Its anxious look was extremely cute. When Xiaoqin saw Bai's appearance, he revealed a smile. These few days, every time this little fellow came out, it would look for Ao Jiao. When it could not find her, it would open its pitiful eyes and look at Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin knew that this little fellow must have gotten addicted to the heaven and earth essence. However, now that Ao Jiao had sealed herself in the lunar shadow saber, Xiaoqin did not know when he would be able to see her again. Thinking of this, Xiaoqin could not help but feel melancholy. Without that lass by his side, he felt that something was missing. Hugging Bai in his embrace, Xiaoqin started to infuse essence into its body, circulating the mysterious 9 heavenly revolution transformations cultivation method. This was something he had started doing after returning 3 days ago. Naturally, it was better for spirit beasts to cultivate as early as possible. Bai was an innate rank 6 spirit beast. In the future, it would definitely be a great help to Xiaoqin. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.